Good morning, race fans. Hello, everyone. We are back. We are back for the final time this weekend. Welcome, everyone. No more early starts for me after this weekend until we head to China, which is another early start, but it's not as early as the Australian Grand Prix. The only time I will have to get up this early again is in Vegas at the end of the year. Morning, Rob. Morning, everyone. Jono, Bookie, Eclair, Daisy, David, Minty, Mark, Jags, Joey. Good to see you. Welcome, wherever you are tuning in from across the world. Hope you are good. Oh, we have a interesting race ahead of us, don't we? If you looked at Twitter yesterday, it's all doom and gloom. It's all doom and gloom before we've even seen these cars go wheel to wheel. And I get it. Doesn't look good. But we still haven't seen 22 F1 drivers go wheel to wheel. And they see a gap. They're going to go for it. So hopefully the racing product, which is what we all care about, let's be real, the racing is better. And at least subsides some of the criticisms. But the criticisms are still very valid, of course. And certain drivers, a particular Red Bull driver, is not happy and is definitely trying to enforce change. And look, hopefully we will see that throughout this season. But at the moment, we're stuck with what we got. And hopefully the Australian Grand Prix provides us at least something to smile about come the end of the 54 laps we're about to see. Going to be interesting to see which teams will have tech problems. Yeah, it's been a big factor of this weekend, and I think it's definitely going to be. We'll do a poll shortly. We've got a poll at the moment for where Max Verstappen will finish, but we'll do a poll shortly of how many cars we think will actually finish the race today. Because I think there's going to be a good few DNFs. I think there's going to be a few safety cars. I think there's going to be car contact. There's going to be debris. And I think it could be a very chaotic race. But good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is currently just gone 3 a.m. here in the UK. 3 a.m. as we build up to the Australian Grand Prix. If you are unfamiliar with how we do things here, well, we go live an hour before the race begins. We have a little chit-chat. We have our coffee, or depending on where you are in the world, I'm sure it's beer o'clock. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? And we have our beverage. We warm up, and then we watch the sighting laps, so the reconnaissance laps. Drivers just make their way around to their grid slots, because sometimes, as we've mentioned, there's some things that have happened before at the reconnaissance laps, and this weekend there could be that could be interesting with some early gremlins. Hopefully not, because we want to see all 22 cars start today, and then we'll go into our pre-race strategy, look information. Everything that is relevant to your viewing experience today. So we will look at we've got the beautiful Pirelli graphic returning. Wow, it disappeared at the end of last season. The beautiful Pirelli graphic that shows us the tyre strategy options, the tyre allocations that drivers have remaining today, because that is still potentially going to play a factor. Still have to be wary of those tyres. And then the pit stop lost time, etc. All of that fancy info that, is going to be interesting to viewing today, or important to your viewing today. How is my hair always on point? It's the camera. It's a camera trick. I have very dark hair, as you can tell, but it needs a cut. It's way too long. I've got a mullet going on, and I just brush it. But it's not in its best condition right now. But because it's dark, it kind of, the camera hides it when it's looking a bit naff. But bring the chaos, exactly. Bring the chaos. Wear the Mercedes shirt. I'm going neutral today. I'm going neutral. So, do I think the Mercedes engine will be all-powerful now that they're doing 50 laps? Well, I don't want to put a damper on anyone's hopes when it comes to the race today for Mercedes. But there is actually, in qualifying, the amount of recovery that you could get in that battery was less than what we're going to see in the race. They limited it to 7 megajoules. That means absolutely diddly squat to me, but I know that it's a lower unit than what 8 and to 8.5 megajoules is, which is what is, I think it's 8.5 in the race they're actually able to recover throughout the race, like a per lap. So yeah, if anything, that's going to increase the advantage that Mercedes has because they are so efficient on their recovery. But as we analysed yesterday and we saw through the data, thank you, Connor, by the way, for that, if you are listening, their advantage is purely in straight line speed, just purely in the power output that they are able to generate from their engine with the efficiency in their recovery of the battery. They're doing less lift and coast. They're just able to stay full throttle for longer. And the top speed that they achieve, as Lewis Hamilton said, it's 2 temps per sector from what we saw over a single lap yesterday. But that is still a single lap. However, yes, there was a short long run, shall we say, around 10 to 12 laps that they did on the Friday practice or Saturday morning practice. And that was at a very good pace as well. So if you're wondering whether they've compromised their race pace for single lap pace, not so much. But we'll see. Every single Mercedes engine has had a gremlin here this weekend, so we will see. McLaren yesterday, update on them. They did also have similar battery deployment issues to that of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Very interesting to learn that I thought the battery was deployed manually. However, that is not the case. I'm still learning things about these regs. They use machine learning. They're basically using AI, a learning model that basically maps the optimum way to deploy the battery as they do laps, the more laps that they do. And supposedly, due to the stoppages that they had in Q1 yesterday, in not Q2, but particularly in Q1, and then of course in Q3 as well, it really ballsed up the machine learning, and it decided to deploy the battery in areas that it shouldn't have been deploying it in. So the reason why Lewis was bailing out in the second sector so often was because the car was trying to deploy the battery 100% out of turn into the turn 4 corner out of turn 4, which is just not where you want it to be. So he was getting to sector 2 with like no battery available for him, which is where you want it the most. So that was the same for Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, and also the same for the McLaren boys as well. And well, we know Norris also picked up front wing damage by running over the debris. So yeah, lots of things that just went wrong yesterday. That gap is a lot smaller. I do think that if the battery deployment had sorted itself out on the McLaren and the Ferrari, that gap would not be as wide as it is. They were suspecting 2 temps per sector, so maybe they could have got it down to 6 temps. I think, to be honest, they're short-siding themselves a bit there. I think the McLaren boys and both the Ferrari lads could have got it probably within to about 3 temps. But even so, that's still a significant margin. But not as dramatic as what we saw at 8 temps yesterday. But still, it just shows how this regulation right now is dependent on, the power output. Why did they not replace Norris's nose yesterday? Well, this was an interesting one, Drew. Apparently, Norris said in the post-race interview, the reason he got asked that very question, he said, we don't have another front wing. Which is a very, very concerning. So do they not have any more front wings available at McLaren? Are they that limited on parts? Or maybe they didn't want to change it because they wanted to save it at least for the race. But yeah, he said we didn't have another front wing to put on. Hey Mark, it's great to be a member here, and I've already hit the thumbs up button. For those of you who haven't subscribed, it's the best time to do it. Let's hit some great numbers this time around. Yes, I'm really looking forward to today. Thank you for those that who are new subscribers and found the channel for the first time this weekend. We will be here for every single race weekend this year. We very quickly head into China next week, which is a sprint race, and then swiftly followed into Suzuka. But this is my 3rd year. I think I've been to my 4th year doing this now. I think it's my 4th season. So thoroughly enjoy it. They've got bigger and better, and I love it, and I'm going to continue to love it and enjoy it. So thank you guys. Do I think, Richard, good ratings, by the way, do I think F1 will have more crashes due to close racing than battery power loss? Yes, I think so. I think, look, hopefully the Mercedes doesn't have a significant advantage over every single race circuit. But what we should have is that the field behind should have good racing. Ultimately, everyone's got to deal with these batteries. And it may be that it just nets itself off, that everyone is having to do the same thing when it comes to their battery management. Everyone's got slightly different deployment strategies as well. But we will see drivers just go for track position. And track position is still always going to be key in F1. It's much harder to overtake than it is to defend. I guess, theoretically speaking, it's always harder to attack than it is to defend. And yeah, we will see how that plays out today. Now, there are brand new regulations, driving guidelines today that hopefully I do not have to review after this race, but if so, I will review them. I didn't get a chance this weekend to review them and put a video together for you. I will do so in the week. So there is a more common sense approach to racing, it seems, in the racing guidelines, which is good to see from the FIA, but whether or not it will be implemented by the stewards, because we still don't have the same stewards at every single race weekend, is yet to be seen. But I will cover those for you, what has changed, what I like about them, what I don't like about them. Unfortunately, the head of the Apex rules still exists, so that is something that you need to take consideration when overtakes are being made today. Ah, the missus is up. She is up. Did wonder when she was going to wake up. Morning, George. Let's hope they make it past the first corner. I think so. I think they will. So, if it rains, must be the water. Well, it doesn't look. It looks a little bit overcast. Of course, we will look at the weather report. We will do that shortly. They get AI to do the job. I know. So this was I don't know if this is a regulation that F1 has implemented, or whether or not it is just like for time saving expense. So obviously, AI, a lot of the reasons that AI is used now these days is for obviously time reasons, to try and speed up a process, because it can do things a lot quicker than what obviously we humans can. And I'm surprised that the drivers aren't manually deploying their battery. I thought that's what they were always going to do. They were the ones who click on. It's not so much AI, it's machine learning. Is it not the same thing? Are they not like? I guess they're in the same family. Is that right, Mark? They're in the same family. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm surprised that they lean on that so much and aren't utilizing it themselves, because surely the drivers would know where's best to implement the battery, right? Where they want to see it, and back at the garage, in the garage, they can analyze that data of where is best. So. Kleiner, friendly greetings from Germany. You found this channel yesterday. You found a channel that accompanied the races yesterday. Don't know about you, but here in Germany, you have to pay €45 to watch the race. Otherwise, no, definitely, that is something that you still have to do here in the UK. Look, I still watch Sky Sports. I have it alongside me as a support tool, really, to let you guys know accurately what has happened out on track. It's on a slight delay for me, which is great. I use it almost as a replay tool. But yeah, that is obviously why these watch-alongs, I guess, are so have gained popularity. And also, you get a community aspect, don't you, on YouTube and through these watch-alongs that you don't get when watching just it on TV by yourself. I hadn't heard any public discussion about how these front wings will make any minor contact into a major problem. That's also something. I don't think the front wings are really too much of an issue than what we first foresaw they would be. My concern, or not my concern, but I think what will happen is the winglets, I guess, or the wing the deflectors on the inside. A lot of people have confused them as being barge bolts. They're not barge bolts, that are just behind the wheels. So they are there to basically guide the airflow from to inside the car to create in-wash, to limit the amount of outwash so that the cars don't throw off as much dirty air. And those things are placed in such a precarious position that I think we are going to see a few of those be lost today and end up on the racetrack. That is something that no one's really spoken about yet. So, yeah, let's see how that plays out today. And that's all carbon fibre. We know what that can do. That can cause slow punctures and punctures in general. So, and how much would losing one of those cause you a drop in performance? So that's something to take consideration as well, and we're yet to be seen. Will the actual race be shown? Can't find streams that actually show the race. So what we do here, Beast Mode, at the moment, we are just discussing everything before the race goes live. We have live data available for you and a track map with my commentary. There will not be live TV coverage. You will be hard strung by to find that online because it's illegal. It's copyright. So you will not be able to do that or find a stream that does that. Do I think Max will stay in F1 if the regulations don't change quickly? I mean, he's less likely to stay in F1. That is for sure. I mean, I know obviously he's a very rich man already, but he is earning £70 million per year or 70 million euros per year, whichever currency it's in. That's a considerable amount of money for anyone to give up for obviously the job that he's doing. So I think he'd probably just turn up to race weekends and just not care overly too much. But yeah, there is a possibility that, I mean, Max already doesn't really care. He'll speak his mind and he will call the FIA out on everything. He knows he has a platform. He knows that he has a strong fan base and he can enforce change in the sport. And I think he will do. And I think the FIA, looking at obviously all the comments online yesterday via Twitter and so forth, it wasn't great. I listened to a few pieces of content yesterday on YouTube and Spotify just to get a gauge of what the general feeling was. And let's just say it wasn't positive. I don't think anyone came away from qualifying yesterday and went, that was a positive experience. Seeing a team 8 tenths ahead, seeing them, of course, downshift into turn 9, dramatically slow. So it's not what we want to see from F1. But look, if the racing is better today, then I said it before, I will happily sacrifice the excitement of qualifying for a good racing product. And that's what we are going to discover today, if that is the case. However, Australia, I also have a low bar in relation to expectations for Australia because it's never been a circuit that does really provide us great racing. So there's also that aspect as well. But the drivers definitely don't like it. There's probably only 2 drivers on the grid that do like it, and that's Russell and Antonelli. Although Lewis Hamilton seems to be a lot more positive than any of the other drivers on the grid. He seems quite positive. Do I think Ferrari have fixed their deployment issue from yesterday? I would suspect they have done. Right, we are waiting for drivers to make their way around to their grid slots. We have the live data available. We'll have that very shortly, and then we'll have we'll head into the race start of our race. AI is the broad concept of machines mimicking human intelligence, and machine learning is a subset that enables them to learn from data. There we go. Let him go to GT3 racing and taking all the fanboys with him. Second seat curse is finally broken. I would say it's too early to do that. But I do think it's a good start. Of course, it couldn't have gone really much better for Hadjar finishing in P3 yesterday. It is a new look. It is a much more new look Red Bull. So yeah, there's definitely going to be opportunity there for Hadjar this year. And I think with the overall gap in performance to Mercedes glaringly at the start here of the season, I don't think they can afford to just put all their eggs in one basket of Max, especially with the attitude that he has with these cars right now. They're going to need Isaac Hadjar this year. So Max said he is emotionally drained. He doesn't usually talk about the emotional side of things often. No. And look, this has been my concern as to why I put Max Verstappen 5th in the World Championship. And I got absolutely tanked for it in the comments that I was questioning the mental side of Max this year. But I just know, everyone knows what it's like when you've been in a job. It doesn't matter how much you earn, right? Everyone knows what it's been like, I think, at some point. If you haven't, then you're very lucky. But everyone's been in a job at some point where you've gone, I just can't do this anymore. I mean, this is just, what am I doing? This is just terrible. I'm just doing this for a paycheck. I don't enjoy it, and I need to move. I need to get out. And that's what Max could potentially feel this year. And that's my concern. My concern is that he'll just focus. His enjoyment is going to be received from the other motorsport series that he's going to be involved in this year. And his ventures away from this racetrack, away from F1. And F1 will be exactly that, just a way to pick up a paycheck. Because obviously it's a very lucrative paycheck. And he will just not enjoy his time this year in F1. And if you're not enjoying your time in F1, then you're less likely to perform at the best of your ability. So, simple as that. He's still human. So here we go. Green light. Pit exit is open, and we have drivers now doing their reconnaissance laps. If you are new to F1, what exactly are they doing right now? Well, what they are doing is that they are just... This is basically just a systems check. They make their way around the track just to see how the track surface is, get their eye in, make sure all of the systems in the cars are working, and they will then line up on their starting grid position, where you then have, obviously, the grid walk and so forth. And then when that happens, when they come to the end of this, so in the next 10 minutes or so, next 9 minutes, we will then have a look at the all-important strategy options for today. What do I think about Audi qualifying P10-11? I think that's a brilliant start for them. Absolutely brilliant start for them. I didn't think they'd qualify that high, to be honest with you. However, I am still concerned about the reliability of Audi. We saw Bortoletto not even be able to participate in Q3 yesterday because of an engine issue. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my concern. I think we're going to see a few of those reliability concerns today. So, Max Verstappen, where will he finish today? Starting P20. And many of you think he's going to finish in the top 10. Top 5. It's already a double yellow. Piastri's going slowly. Piastri, the home favourite, has stopped out on track. I said something may happen here before the race has even got going in the reconnaissance laps, and Piastri has come to a standstill, just like he did in FP1. Has he got the same issue, or has he gone off? Oh, he crashed! Oh my goodness! Piastri's crashed! He's hit the curb, driver error, he's round, and he's binned it on the recon lap. Oh my goodness, Oscar! The Australian curse continues! I can't believe what I've just seen. He's just hit the curb, and he's just gone round on himself. It's not a drive, it's not mechanical, he's just binned it. He says he's okay. He's just... I can't believe... Oh my goodness. He's just got on the exit curb of turn 4, and the car has just gone round on him. No grip, of course. This is an outlap. It's an outlap, and he's just binned it round, and there's so many disappointed Oscar fans. There's literally a group of people in the stands with Oscar t-shirts and hats and faces on... Oh my God, it's driver error. He's binned it. The front right's gone. The front wing's gone. And he is out before it's even started. And a dejected Oscar Piastri. Oh my goodness. What have we just witnessed? I said something could happen. Do I just need to keep my mouth shut today? I'm sorry. I feel like I've jinxed everyone this weekend. You know what? Let's continue that. Mercedes are going to win this race by 30 seconds today. I cannot believe. It's not even about the track being frozen. It's just the fact... Oh, do you know what? It is the slightest of touches on that curb. It's similar to... So he's basically gone over the curb, the exit curb of turn 4. Not even that much in fairness to him. I'm looking at the different camera angles right now. He's gone over the curb not even that much, and it just shows how sensitive these cars are. And similar to how Antonelli's car yesterday over that first exit curb, he came off of it, and there's a little unsettling of the car. So as it comes off of these curbs, they're slightly raised, and you can see the car go up and down slightly. It's only so much, but because it's the outlap and the tyres are obviously not up to temperature either, the car just goes round on itself. Now, I will admit I'm going to reserve my judgment here just for a moment on Oscar Piastri, because we have seen... So, Norris has been told he's lost it on the exit curb at turn 4 doing a shift. So, I am going to... We have seen, i.e. Max Verstappen yesterday, with the transfer of battery energy to the rears. We have seen, through that corner in particular yesterday, the Ferraris get 100% deployment in that corner when they shouldn't be. We saw Sergio Perez go off and have a spin there as well at turn 4 with something similar happening. So these cars are catching these drivers out and the cars are going round on themselves when we normally wouldn't expect them to because of the battery deployment. So if that is true, he's gone into a downshift. I mean, it's not the sort of thing that you expect to see, that unsettling of the car on the exit of coming off of that curb and throwing it into the wall. So I'm going to reserve a bit of judgment there against Oscar Piastri, because I think there's something mechanical there that has caused him to receive maybe more acceleration and more torque than he was necessarily applying, because we have seen that this weekend thus far. So Oscar, same battery problem as Max. Maybe not the same, but I think to some extent, yes. I think to some extent. But if you are just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and you have just woken up, no, your eyes are not deceiving you. It is not. You are still not half asleep. Oscar Piastri has indeed crashed at turn 4 on the outlap here to the grid, on the reconnaissance lap. We expected something may happen. I expected maybe a mechanical gremlin, not someone actually sticking it in the wall. Least of all, the Aussie, the home favourite here, trying to break that Australian curse of an Australian never standing on the podium. And, well, it seems that is going to continue, because Oscar Piastri is out as he's put his McLaren into the barrier. No repair available for him. He has got a broken front wing. He has a battered front right suspension. The wheel is hanging off, and Oscar Piastri will not start his home Grand Prix and the first race of this season. Unbelievable. He's DNF'd already. It's going to be a do not start. It's going to be a DNS. Everyone was expecting that Aston Martins would not be starting this race. It's actually going to be Oscar Piastri. That is absolutely wild. Absolutely wild, guys. I can't believe that. Dude pulled a Lance Stroll. Can you see a photo? I'm sure if you go on Twitter, you'll be able to see a photo right now of Oscar Piastri in the barrier. But that is wild. But the explanation that has been given to Lando Norris by his engineer is that he lost it on the curb of exit of turn 4, doing a shift. So is that something that has thrown his car around there? Because it does seem like that was a... It does seem like that was a... Sorry, just... yeah, it does seem like that was very much so I think something has been thrown to the back of that car there. It's very odd, very odd. Oscar's battery locked up his rear. It didn't lock up his rear. I think what we saw yesterday in qualifying is that we saw in particular Lewis Hamilton and I think it was Lewis Hamilton's on board we saw, but I saw that the battery decided to deploy 100% out of turn 4, and Lewis really, you're not expecting it. So he had to, he had a snap of oversteer through there, and it was a good save. I think this was when they were doing the analysis on Anthony Davison's the Skypad, and I think maybe something similar has happened to Oscar, because he comes off the curb and you see the car go up and down slightly. And it's as it comes off the right rear, comes off of the curb and drops down on the floor, but it goes round on itself. So I reckon, I mean, I would not expect, even on an outlap there, with the pace that he was going, I would not expect that to really throw him into the wall as aggressively as it did. And I think that, yeah, something untoward has happened in the rear of that car, or the deployment of more energy than maybe he was looking to do. It's just, season is a car crash. It's not even got started yet. Hey, Alan, good to see you, mates. The Aussie curse is still hanging around. It is indeed. So, yes, if you're just joining us on these reconnaissance laps right now, as drivers are making their way round to the grid, Oscar Piastri has crashed on his outlap at turn 4 after coming off of the curb of turn 4. Downshifting there, supposedly, maybe something to do with the battery. We are yet to get confirmation of that. But he is out. He has no front right suspension. He has no front wing. And the Aussie curse, unfortunately, does continue. No Aussie on the podium for today. There's a yellow flag. Oh, the yellow flag at the has been thrown at the end of the pit straight, start straight there. That is for drivers to slow down and prepare to join the grid. So there we go, guys. There we go. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, today, guys, before we head into our strategy options for today, we do have a sponsor for the stream. Yes, NordVPN, guys. You can see the link in the description below, and code as well. You can get yourself a huge discount and 4 months free, 30-day money-back guarantee. So, guys, thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this stream. First of many with them, hopefully. But there we go. Chaos. Absolute chaos. The home favourite, Oscar Piastri. You'd definitely not think of that, would you? Definitely not think of them. Right, guys, shall we head into our strategy options? Right. Upshifting on a curb, apparently. Upshifting on a curb, and the car went round on itself. Right. NordVPN is our sponsor today, Lab. NordVPN. Description is in the comment. Link is in the description in the comments below, as well as my code, and in the pinned chat message as well. So I'm just waiting to see. Hang on, I'm just listening here to Oscar Piastri's onboard to hear exactly what happened. If you're just joining us, Oscar Piastri has crashed on the outlap here, and he is out of the Australian Grand Prix. His home Grand Prix, the first race of this season. We're about to have a look at the strategy options. So I'm looking at listening to the analysis on the SkyPad, and I just want to see. So they're analysing Oscar's outlap here, and he gets out of turn 1, and there's a lot of power to the rear already as he's exited the pit lane. That is to the rear of the car, so you can hear the wheel spin. So let's see what happens as he goes down into turn 4. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. Why are we using AI or machine learning, whatever, in F1? Isn't F1 a raw racing sport? What direction? Exactly. I'm very surprised that they haven't even got to... they're not doing this manually. Car is not recoverable. Chassis damage, front wing, rear wing. Exactly. Yeah, and it's all about even getting the car back to the pits as well. Right, hang on. Yeah, so he's saying, so basically they're analysing and saying that, as we already have an investigation, by the way, for Nico Hulkenberg for a race start infringement for the procedure. So, yeah. If Oscar Piastri used NordVPN, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. Well, you never know, you know. Right, let's have a look at the strategy options. But yes, Oscar Piastri is out of this race before it's even started, ladies and gents. They're saying it's a combination. Their analysis at Sky, Anthony Davidson, who does do good analysis, he says that it is a combination of mechanical and driver error. Because the car was not in the peak window, and had issues deploying the power when he was. It was different. Jensen Button explains there, it's different every single time he gets on the throttle. So he's receiving more power than expected when he goes through kind of like every single corner. There was no consistency there. Bearing in mind, he only made it through 4 corners, and that's caught him out. So unbelievable, unbelievable. Here we are, guys. Our first strategy options for the season. It's actually 58 laps here. Apologies, not 54. And, well, we have all the information we need. 21-second pit stop loss. Well done, Pirelli. You've provided us everything we need. But we'll have a look in more detail at the pit stop loss time here today. But I'm going to give you guys some low expectations here today. I do not think we're going to see the 2-stopper. If you are not familiar with the Australian Grand Prix, then, well, we do have normally a 1-stop race here. We are on the C3, C4, and C5 compound of tyre. And we have seen in the past here, many a time, drivers take the hard compound tyre a considerable distance. And this, I think, is what we will probably see today, the 1-stop come into fruition. Who knows, of course, with safety cars and so forth, I think the strategy option is going to be very up and down. We could see multiple pit stops. But this track is not known really for its tyre degradation. That's why we are on the soft compound of tyre. It's not really, while you're on full throttle for around 70% of the lap, quite a large proportion of the lap, not quite as much as Spa, it is a track that isn't really hard on the tyres. There's not a lot of energy that is put through them. So he has 3 sets. We're about to have a look at the tyre allocations in a second. The battery is either locking up the rear or spinning the wheels. Yeah, the battery is, because of this machine learning that we've just discussed, and the drivers, which is news to me, are not in full control of their battery deployments. They're getting caught out. The machine learning is deploying the battery more in corners that they're not expecting it to. So the drivers are having to contend with that, as well as cold tyres and so forth. I mean, it's part driver error, yes, and but I'm going to say there's more error on the whole. There's more of an error on the mechanical side of things there. So the strategy options for today will either be the medium compound tyre to the hard tyre, the soft compound tyre to the hard tyre. I'd be interested to see who maybe starts on the soft today, maybe who wants to get a decent launch off the line. We always see that kind of strategy. Maybe that'll be a viable option for today. Maybe those Ferrari drivers with those wicked starts, maybe starting on a soft compound tyre will be a viable strategy for them. Get a couple of important positions at the start. Haas, Cadillac, and of course Ferrari. And then we have the 2-stopper, medium, hard, medium, and soft, medium, soft. I predict we'll see the hard compound tyre definitely in play today. But if we have safety cars, which I do suspect we will do in either a VSC or a full safety car capacity, I think the 2-stopper will definitely be utilised. I don't think people are going to, if there's cheap pit stops to be taken, they're going to take them. So those are the strategy options for today, but have low expectations. Because we normally see a 1-stop here. So, onto our tyre allocations for today. And you can see, well, ignore Oscar Piastri. We might as well put a strike through there for Oscar Piastri because he is out as he crashed at turn 4. We have Lando Norris there. He's got a brand new set of hards and 2 brand new sets of mediums. You can see the 2 McLaren and the 2 Mercedes boys have basically the same tyres available to them. Max Verstappen, of course, not made it out of Q1 yesterday after that mechanical issue caused him to go in a spin and lock the rears at the end of the start-finish straight. He is okay. He has no fractures to his hands. He might be a bit sore, but he is okay. He has 3 brand new sets of softs available to him. He can do what he likes today, and it should at least be fun watching him make his way through the field in that handy Red Bull, because I think if he was in Q3, he would have probably finished 3rd and taken that Red Bull closer than the gap of 8 tenths that he currently is to Hadjar. Charles Leclerc, interestingly, with Hamilton, they have a brand new set of hards and only 1 brand new set of mediums available. So maybe they are looking and already committing to a 1-stop here today. And they have 3 used sets of softs. So, interesting to see what Ferrari do. Sainz didn't even participate in qualifying, so he has all the tyres available to him, as does Lance Stroll as well. But yeah, everyone's got a brand new set of hards. Hadjar, Red Bull are the only team really in the top 10 of the big boys who have a difference in their tyres. So they've got 2 brand new set of hards. We'll see how that plays out for them. So that is the tyre allocations. But still, I expect it to be a 1-stop today if there is no safety cars. Do I think Lewis has a chance at the championship? It's a long season. I would say he definitely seems positive. I'm less positive now than I was before qualifying yesterday. But it's a long season and anything can happen. But yes, Mercedes are definitely the favourites. And Lewis, I mean, he definitely seems to be in a better place. And that's a positive. So, this is actually the race simulation pace. This is interesting. However, I think this did raise an eyebrow when this came through because not really many people did that too many long runs over the practice session. So I would take this with a very big, large pinch of salt, as McLaren are seen to have the best race simulation pace. But Mercedes were really the only one this weekend to do kind of over 10 laps for a long run, if you can call that a long run, and it did look very ominous. So Mercedes on paper, I would say, after seeing them in qualifying yesterday and from the data we've got from practice, should comfortably win this race if it goes plain sailing for them. But we know from what we've already seen that Oscar out of this race crashing at turn 4, it is going to be anything but easy today, I believe. Ferrari, a third fastest. I think that's probably correct. I say that's correct. I think it's a bit closer between Red Bull and Ferrari than we think. But it all comes down to the battery and everything again, which we don't like to know. Haas, interestingly, are supposedly the fastest midfield team. Audi down there, while they had a good qualifying yesterday, they seem to be quite some way off the pace. But not everyone did. This, I said, this data is based off of somewhat interrupted practice sessions, and no one really did kind of like a long run, a typical long run plan. So, let's have a look at that pit stop loss time today. These are the gaps that you need to be keeping an eye out on. And it's interesting there that Pirelli have 21 seconds as the average pit stop loss time. And F1 here has a slightly different view. Stationary, the green flag, the gap is 19.3 seconds. That is the pit stop loss time here at Australia. So, it is a short pit stop here. One of the quickest on the calendar. So, definitely something that could be utilised. Maybe that 2-stop will be utilised if we see that on the tyres. But I still think it'll be a 1-stop. Safety car. So there is a 5-second advantage. That's quite small. 5-second advantage from a VSC or a safety car pit stop. Not as large as we see elsewhere. On average, it's normally around 10 to 11 seconds. So if we do see a safety car today, and there has been a high percentage of safety cars in the last 7 years, 67% is the VSC and the safety car, full safety car here at Australia. Of course, with it being so early in the season, there is normally some reliability issues and some gremlins that pop up, as well as many crashes as well, which we've already seen this weekend. And today, before the race even got underway with Oscar Piastri, we will see, I think, a definite safety car today. So that is it. 5% chance of weather. I don't think there's got any opportunity. It's a little bit overcast, but the sun seems to be breaking through the clouds. So I suspect it is going to be a dry race today. No wet weather like we saw last year. So that is the data that you need for today, guys. Melbourne. Strategy, probably a 1-stop, but I think this will probably be thrown out at somewhat because of the safety cars that we're going to see today. But if you are just joining us, Oscar Piastri is out of the Australian Grand Prix. He crashed on his outlap at turn 4, has no front right suspension, has no front wing, and the Aussie curse, unfortunately, continues. So, yeah, real shame for Oscar Piastri fans and, of course, the Aussie fans out there. Him racing at his home circuit, but not a good start to this season. You think Alonso is going to surprise us today with Max in second? Would be a great result. If Max gets up to second, that's unbelievable. I feel like something's still going to happen with one of the Mercedes today. I feel like it's not going to be as plain sailing as people think, so... But 16 minutes remaining until we get into the start of this race. Those are your strategy options. Seems like everyone pretty much has the same selection of tyres available to them, except Russell and Antonelli have 2 brand new sets of mediums compared to Verstappen and Hadjar, who have 2 brand new sets of hards. Of course, Verstappen has all the softs available to him because he didn't make it through into Q2. As he was out in Q1. Hamilton and Leclerc have 1 brand new set of hards and 1 brand new set of mediums, a used set of mediums. So, yeah, the strategy is not exactly the most exciting part here at Australia because of it not being a very high abrasive circuit. So, that is it. The pit stop loss time is 19 seconds, around 20 seconds. That is the gap that drivers will be looking for. And of course, if there is a safety car, which I do presume we will see here today, it is a 5-second advantage. So not the largest on the calendar. And that is your pre-race info. Martin Brundle literally just went, I think you're going to be busy out there today when it comes to the safety car driver, Bert Meinlander. Do the grid positions change because of Oscar Piastri going out? No, they do not. It just means that there'll be an empty grid slot wherever Oscar Piastri was lining up in P5. So Lewis Hamilton will have a clear... Lewis Hamilton will not have a car in front of him. The next car in front of him will be Isaac Hadjar. So his grid slot in front of him will be clear. So yeah, not good for Oscar. Was it mechanical? Was it driver error? Well, it's an odd one. I don't know. I feel like there's probably more on the mechanical side than it is the driver. I guess there is obviously always a proportion of blame to the driver because they should be able to deal with it. But there definitely was something not right with the deployment of energy to that McLaren. It was too much out of the first and second corner on the outlap. He had to contend with that. And he went through turn 3 and turn 4. And we saw it often yesterday where the deployment, we've spoken about it at the start as, well, we have an update of the risk of rain. It's not even 5%, it's 0%. It was, we saw the battery overly deploy through turn 4 yesterday because the battery deployment is actually done not manually, as I thought it was. It's done via machine learning, via an algorithm. And it caught a few drivers out yesterday, over this weekend, and I reckon we could see some big crashes today. I really hope I am wrong, but I think we are definitely going to see some people caught out, some spins with this whole machine learning thing and the battery. Of course, the more laps that they do, the more data it has available to sort it out for them. But I think Piastri just had too much torque coming out of that corner. He did touch the curb, so that is his mistake there. So that is where a proportion of blame can be attributed to him. But I think just the nature of these batteries and how it's been catching them out, I think that's what happened to him there. So, but he's out. He is out. Oscar Piastri out before this race even starts. What a shame for any Oscar Piastri fans and Aussie fans. Machine learning like Skynet, I know. Shall we have a guess? Right. Let's run another poll. So Max Verstappen, where will he finish today? Many of you think he'll finish in the top 10. 40% of you. Top 5, 32%. On the podium, 20%. And 80% of you think he's not even going to score any points. So let's run another poll. And let's ask you. Let's go... well, it's definitely not going to be all 22. How many cars will finish? 21 cars, because Oscar's not even starting. We will go, let's say, shall we say 16 cars? So we lose 5 more cars? Shall we say only 12 cars? And we'll say less than 10. I mean, less than 10, I think the race would actually have to be terrible, right? I say 21 cars. 21 to 16 cars, basically, guys. 21 to 16 cars. I think we're going to see at least 5 DNFs. We've already seen 1, but I think we'll see a further 5 DNFs. Oscar told the pit crew he had no battery just before the crash, then said it was back right before the spin, the commentators are saying. That would make sense, Glenn. Yeah, it seemed something like that. It's very akin to what I was saying. It's very akin to what happened to Sergio Perez in that corner in practice where he went round. All of a sudden, the battery is going 100% deployment when they put their foot down on the throttle. And it's catching the drivers out. I mean, anyone who's been in an electric car will know that the acceleration in an electric car is phenomenal. And in these F1 cars, if all of a sudden they get a burst of electrical energy that they're not expecting when they're putting their foot down on the throttle, that's really going to unsettle them. That's going to throw the car around into a spin like we've seen a few times, like we saw from Oscar there. Lewis did very well to catch the car yesterday. He had that exact moment in turn 4 with the battery being 100% deployed. So, yeah. I think the battery is destabilising the rear, not only because of the deployment, but also because of the weight imbalance. Yeah, probably. I mean, there's so much going on there at the moment. So much going on. Why does the Aussie curse strike again? I know, it's a real shame. It is a real shame. But thank you everyone for tuning in, by the way. Hope you are well. Hope you, if you're just tuning in, by the way, and you're wondering what has occurred here. Well, the big news is that Oscar Piastri is out before this race even starts. He has crashed at turn 4 into the barrier on his outlap. He was the first driver out on track as well, which makes it even worse at his home circuit. So Oscar is good. He's out of the car. I can't imagine mentally he's very good right now. He must be feeling absolutely sick to his stomach. I know I definitely would be. Yeah, for him, not even getting to start his home race is a real shame. So Lando Norris will be the sole McLaren driver today. We have already lost a driver before the race even starts. It does look like that Lance Stroll is lining up on the grid today. So we do have both Aston Martins lining up on the grid. Carlos Sainz is lining up on the grid as well. So we do not have anyone starting from the pit lane as far as I can tell. Williams are so good that Albon was flexing about beating Franco in the quali. Oh, I know. Adrian Newey taking notes, standing beside the Ferrari. He's probably thinking, can we have that engine? Can we swap it out for the Honda? What's up with the Red Bull of Max Verstappen? If you didn't tune into qualifying yesterday, well, what happened with Max Verstappen? Well, he was the big story of qualifying. Well, one of them. He went out in Q1. He was heading down on his first flying lap into the braking zone of turn 1. He touched the brakes, and there was a software glitch, apparently. This is what Laurent Mekies has confirmed, or Pierre Wash said, lead designer at Red Bull. There was a software glitch that caused the rear axle to lock up. As soon as Max Verstappen put his foot on the brake pedal, the rear's locked up and he went into a very dramatic spin at high speed at the end of the start-finish straight, and he went into the barrier and crashed in Q1. So, yeah, not good. And if there was one driver you wanted didn't want that to happen to, if you're the FIA and F1, it is Max Verstappen, because, of course, he's been very vocal prior to the season getting underway about these regulations, and he was very much so even more vocal yesterday post-qualifying. So, yeah, not a good start, but we still have a race ahead of us. The first race, I'm holding back my reservations until after the race in relation to how this is as a racing product, because that's what we all want to see. That's what we tune in for F1. Yes, it's enjoyable to watch the cars go quickly in qualifying, but if it means we're going to have good racing here, then I think that will soften the criticisms that we have seen. The criticisms are 100% valid, and rightfully so. I don't like it either, the way these regulations are set out. But if the racing is better, then it should soften the blow somewhat. Oh, Nico Hulkenberg starting from the pit lane. Sorry, we do have one driver starting from the pit lane, Nico Hulkenberg, it seems. So, unfortunately for him, he did qualify P11 yesterday, but he is going to be starting from the pit lane. He is under investigation as well for a pit lane infringement, so not entirely sure what that was for. Reliability, no doubts, Cruz. No reliability. And that's been my concern about Audi, is that while it was a great performance yesterday, we saw Gabriel Bortoletto's engine have an issue at the end of Q2, which meant he couldn't participate in Q3. And I think Audi, I think they've got a solid base, but I think they're struggling to just keep the car running for a full session. So, watching the rear wheels of Max in slow motion, they were still rotating north a lockup. It was a lockup at the rears, but it's also probably I'm not sure if they confirmed there was an over-application of the electrical energy to the rears, but the rear axle definitely locked up, because that's the only reason why he would go round in a spin like that. Russell really deserves this opportunity, let's be real. I know he does. Russell definitely deserves this opportunity. And if there's a driver who you would feel comfortable, obviously, capitalising on that opportunity, is George Russell right now. Last year, he was definitely one of the top drivers of the season. I think, me personally, I had him in my top 3. He was my second behind Max, but because of Lando's recovery in the second half of the season to win the championship, I did have Lando second. But George, every time that Mercedes last year was in a position to win, he capitalised on it. Every time he was in a position to score a podium, he capitalised on it. And yes, there is the meme that George Russell does nothing and ended up on the podium. But that's by design. That's because he is a solid driver. He keeps himself out of trouble. I mean, yes, he's been caught up in incidents in the past, but you don't rarely see George Russell in kind of proper airplane crashes, do you, and stuff. Maybe because he hasn't really been in the thick of it, but just because he knows he plays the percentages. He's a smart cat, I guess, and he knows where to pick his battles. I feel like I think he's a meticulous person. I think many of us would agree on that. So, but how many of you think? How many cars do you think will finish today? 21 cars. I meant to say over 21 cars to 16 cars. So 90% of you think the majority of the field will finish. It's 21 cars because we have lost Oscar Piastri. 16, that's 5 more retirements. That will be 57%. I think we're going to see a few more retirements for sure. 16% say 12 and less than 10. Well, you don't have much faith at all, do you? Can we please have a poll to see how many people would love to have a fully built spare cars back in F1? Then I can be the designated representative to take this to the FIA. We'll do that after the stream ends. But after the stream ends. Sorry, after the race ends. Not after the stream ends. So I'm going to end that poll. Not many of you have faith today, of course. Not many of you. But we are only moments away. There we go. We have tyre blankets off with less than 5 minutes to go here for quali. And well. It is medium compound tyres for the majority of drivers here. Max Verstappen is starting on the hard, so he's going to go long. He's going to go on the alternative strategy. We've seen that work out for him in the past. And most recently at Brazil, if you remember, in, last year. No further action for Nico Hülkenberg. That's good for the Audi driver, but he will be starting from the pit lane, unfortunately. Oscar Piastri is blanked out there because he has crashed in the reconnaissance lap and will not be starting this race at the Australian Grand Prix if you are just joining us. Fernando Alonso is on the softs, as is Carlos Sainz. So, interesting. Right, guys, I'm going to take a quick loo break, but I have a quick ad it's the only advert you will see today, from our sponsor for today, from NordVPN. Today's Watchalong is sponsored by NordVPN, the tool that stops those on the internet from nosing around in your business. When I'm live streaming, I'm downloading and uploading a lot of data to and from my PC, so it's important for me to be secure. A VPN such as NordVPN can significantly improve your network security. It hides your digital location and prevents online trackers from following you around. It also blocks intrusive apps, malicious websites, malware, and pesky pop-up ads during downloads, so it's important to have that extra level of security. But NordVPN can also ensure that you can gain access to the content that you love worldwide. And of course, this means Formula One. With just a few clicks, NordVPN changes your virtual location and voila, you have secured your data and unlocks access to F1 coverage worldwide, alongside my very exciting commentary. So if you want to give it a go, head over to nordvpn.com/Stuffeyy or use my code Stuffeyy at checkout for a huge discount plus 4 months extra free. And, well, if you sign up and you think it's not for you, then NordVPN are offering a 30 money day back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/Stuffeyy. We're back. We are back. Right. Overtake has been disabled. Very ballsy to start on the hard in a probable multi-safety car race. True. I think it will be okay, though, for them. I mean, we'll see. But it's going to be an interesting start, for sure. How will Ferrari get underway? How will they do? Just FYI, by the way, guys, just if you do use NordVPN, of course, use the link in the pin chat and the description right now. The spelling in the video is currently incorrect. It will be correct eventually, which I will then eventually update. When is the halftime show? That is the only advertisement that you will see today, guys. Due to the sponsor been the sponsor for today. It will now be uninterrupted for the remainder of this race and live stream. Do not fear, do not fear. How many safety cars this race? I think we're going to see 3. I think we're going to see 3, and I think we're going to see 1 red flag. I think it's going to be a long stream. I think it's going to be a long race. So, yeah. How hard will Sergio defend Max today? I don't think so. Am I a fan of the fan-made intro? I actually haven't seen it yet, Kieran. I haven't seen the fan-made intro, so I'll have to keep an eye on that. Is it better than the normal one? To be fair, I haven't even seen the normal one. I haven't really been. I don't watch the program as it starts, so. Thank you, Rabbi. Much appreciated, buddy. Yeah, it should be a good year. Should be a good year. Right, we have 13 seconds until this formation lap is going to get underway. If you are just joining us, yes, we will run through the grid for the start of this race when they make their way round on this formation lap. But Oscar Piastri is out of the Australian Grand Prix before it even begins because he crashed on the outlap. Unbelievable scenes earlier on from Oscar Piastri. Not entirely sure what happened, whether it was mechanical issue or driver error. It was a real shame for him. There we go. Formation lap underway here. Formation lap underway. So, first formation lap of the season. Shall we run through your grid for the Australian Grand Prix? Because we have 22 cars, 21 right now starting on the grid, but 22 cars were participating for today. Because George Russell lines up on the front row alongside his teammate. A all Mercedes front row lockout. An ominous display yesterday in qualifying. 8 tenths was the gap to Isaac Hadjar. I think that was exasperated quite a bit due to the battery deployment issues of both McLaren drivers and that of the Ferraris as well. But we will see how they fare in the race. It's one thing to do it in qualifying, another to convert it around 58 laps here at Albert Park. So Russell lines up in first, Antonelli in second. Isaac Hadjar is in third. A great first outing for him in the Red Bull, second Red Bull seat. Charles Leclerc lines up in fourth. How will that Ferrari launch off the grid today? Will it be akin to what we saw in Bahrain? Oscar Piastri, we mentioned, has not started this race as he crashed on the reconnaissance lap on his way round to the grid. Aussie curse, unfortunately, continues. Lando Norris is in P6. Lewis Hamilton is in P7. Liam Lawson is in P8 with Arvid Lindblad in P9. A double RB qualification, Q3 qualification yesterday. A great start for both of those two. Colapinto has just been noted for a starting procedure infringement. Not good for the Argentinians' hopes here today. Gabriel Bortoleto starts in P10. Nico Hulkenberg has an issue with his car, which is why he's now starting in P11. And from the pit, he did qualify P11, but he's starting now in the pit lane on the hard compound tyre. Ollie Behrman is in 12th with Esteban Ocon in 13th. Pierre Gasly is 14th with Alex Albon in 15th. Colapinto, we just mentioned pit lane, starting procedure infringement. We're not entirely sure what that is for. He is in 16th. Alonso is in 17th, starting on the softs. Perez and Bottas are on 18 and 9, starting 18th and 19th. Mixed strategy for the two Cadillacs there, one on the mediums, one on the hards. Max Verstappen is starting on the hard compound tyre from P20 after that dramatic crash yesterday in Q1. So it'd be interesting to see where he finishes today. Carlos Sainz is going to be participating today, even though he didn't do any qualifying yesterday or hardly any running at all on Saturday due to a technical issue. He starts 21st on a soft compound tyre. And Lance Stroll, who we didn't see at all yesterday with a power unit issue, will be starting this race. So both Aston Martins will be starting the race today. How many laps will they do? We will see. That is yet to be discovered. So here we are, guys. Moments away. Now remember, there is a delayed start procedure here. The new start procedure is that once all cars are lined up on the grid, there will be a 5-second initial pre-start procedure, allowing the drivers to spool up their turbos by revving the engine so that they are not all sitting ducks off at the starting line. And then we will head into the 5 lights on and out. And of course, the famous away we go for 2026. So Lance Stroll lines up the grid here. It's going to be my first time trying to attempt the lights out graphic here. So let's see how we fare for the first time here at 2026. They are lined up on the grid. It's green light, away we we go for 2026 here at the Australian Grand Prix. Liam Lawson seems to have bogged down at the start, but how about those Ferraris? As Charles Leclerc is up into P2, as Lewis Hamilton is up 4 places into P3. Charles Leclerc leads out of the first corner ahead of George Russell. An unbelievable start from the Ferrari driver as there's changes of position all over the place here as Lewis Hamilton is now up into P5. Lindblad is up 5 places, but the big news here is that Antonelli is down 5 places as George Russell massively spun up the rears. Isaac Hadjar made a brilliant start and Charles Leclerc leads down into the first corner as Lewis Hamilton went all the way round the outside into P3, but then lost a couple of positions on the run down to turn 3. So yes, Ferrari do have unbelievable starts, but here comes the power of the Mercedes engine. Oh my goodness, what a start it is here. Arvid Lindblad has just been overtaken by Lewis Hamilton, I believe, down into turn 9. Oh no, he hasn't. Lindblad is on the attack of Isaac Hadjar, and the 18-year-old rookie, the only rookie on the grid here, is up 6 positions at the start of this race. And Lewis Hamilton and Isaac Hadjar, I think, are all side by side down into turn 11 as Lewis Hamilton moves up into P4. What a dramatic start of this race. He's now up into 3rd. Lewis is up into 3rd, and George Russell is all over the rear of Charles Leclerc. How much longer will that Ferrari be able to hold off George Russell as Max Verstappen is up into 16th place? Liam Lawson had a terrible start at the start of this race and is down 10 positions into P18 as Charles Leclerc and George Russell are now pulling away from the rest of the field as Lewis Hamilton is now into P3 and looking to chase down his teammates as Lewis Hamilton did a very, very good job of overtaking Isaac Hadjar and Arvid Lindblad. Lindblad smartly just decided to let for the Ferrari driver pass, but Lindblad is up into P5 with Lando Norris where he started in that McLaren. Kimi Antonelli, a terrible start from the McLaren drivers and the McLaren cars overall. Ollie Behrman, how did the other Ferrari-powered units do? Esteban Ocon also did very good race starts in Bahrain. Got up into P8, but here we go. Charles Leclerc and George Russell are side by side as they make their way down the back straight here, all the way into turn 9. This is where the Mercedes power unit has a dramatic advantage, and I think George Russell has got ahead of Leclerc. They're side by side into turn 9. Oh my goodness, here at the start of this Australian Grand Prix, and Charles Leclerc is now down into 2nd as George Russell regains the lead from Charles Leclerc. That Mercedes power unit just too much to handle for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. And well, George Russell, just watching the replay now in the slipstream, wow, absolutely swept around the outside of Charles. Actually, he didn't sweep around Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc just had to defend, and George Russell, yes, then did sweep around the outside into turn 11. There was nothing that Charles Leclerc could do as he was out of position. So as at the end of our second lap here, as we start lap 3, George Russell leads from Charles Leclerc in P2 with Lewis Hamilton in P3, up 4 positions at the start and closing down his teammate. But Charles Leclerc is not wanting to let George Russell get out of his sights as he's 4 tenths behind. Overtake is enabled. That is where they will get an extra amount of battery usage available for wherever they want to use this lap, the next lap, if they are within 1 second at the end of turn 13. There you can see that pink dot is the detection point and the green dot is the activation point. But you can see there the difference in battery deployment there and the extra amount of power and energy that the Mercedes has over Charles Leclerc. But you can see Charles Leclerc is looking to come back against George Russell as Charles Leclerc is coming back against George Russell. They're side by side into turn 9, and I think Charles Leclerc is back in the lead. Changes of position here, but will George come back at him? And all the while, this is just allowing Lewis Hamilton to close up the gap here. They're side by side down into the braking zone of turn 11, and Charles Leclerc maintains the lead for now. But George Russell, they're still side by side as Charles Leclerc holds on into turn 12, and Lewis Hamilton is nearly within 1 second of the top 2. This is brilliant racing right now, as Charles did go around the outside of turn 9. A great overtake. And well, Lewis Hamilton is now within the slipstream of George Russell. Charles Leclerc leads from George Russell down into turn 1. Isaac Hadjar, a bit of a gap is forming between them. 3 seconds behind. Arvid Lindblad is in P5. Antonelli is P6. Norris is P7. Ocon is 8th. Gasly 9th. Bortoletto 10th. Behrman is 11th. Alonso is up 5 places here on the soft compound tyre in P12. Albon is in P13. Max Verstappen update. He is up 6 places into 14th. Carlos Sainz is also up into 15th. 6 places up right now. We have Colapinto, where he started him, Lawson is 9 places down into P17. Perez is 18th. Bottas is 19th. Stroll is 20th. And we have Piastri is a non-starter today. And Hulkenberg is a non-starter as well. But we can see there, look at this. George Russell, is he going to be able to overtake? Track position is proving to be key. But even though he has more battery and more efficient energy deployment, I hate to keep using that terminology here, but it's so essential to how we go racing this season. While it was beneficial to them over a single lap, he is coming unstuck here, George Russell, with only 4 on the 4th lap of this 58-lap race here at Albert Park. What a start to this season. Everyone thought it was going to be easy. There's still a very long way to go, of course. But the top 3 are Charles Leclerc, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. They are separated by less than 2 seconds at the moment. George Russell under a second behind Charles Leclerc. As Lewis Hamilton there, just his icon stalls for a second as they went across the start-finish line. He is within. He's now 3 seconds ahead of Isaac Hadjar as Antonelli now gets past Arvid Lindblad and he is up into P5. But the start procedure, it was a horrendous start for George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Wheel spin galore for them off of the start line, and Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. As we saw in Bahrain, we wondered if it would be a repeat from what we saw in the testing at Bahrain a few weeks ago, and by golly, it was, because George Russell spun up the car and Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc just launched down into the first corner. And they are the front 3 right now, separated by just 2.2 seconds, of course. Difference in deployment strategies here between the front 3. We'll see how that fares out for them. Of course, George Russell, it may be a case of like we saw the McLaren last year where he just needs clean air, but he doesn't have clean air at the moment because he's looking at the rear wing of Charles Leclerc. George Russell in second, Lewis Hamilton in third. As we move down the grid and have a look at Max Verstappen as he makes up another position here, and he's going side by side with Pierre Gasly, but he can't dispatch Pierre Gasly as just behind him Alex Albon is trading places with Fernando Alonso as Gasly's gone off and he's slow. Gasly has gone off. He was fighting Max Verstappen, his former teammate. Max is now up into P12 and it seems that Gasly now has an issue. Has Gasly got an issue? I think Gasly is showing that he's actually up into P9 right now. What is going on with Gasly's transponder? I'm not entirely sure. So incorrect there. Incorrect, because Gasly, by the looks of it, is actually on the attack and getting past Gabriel Bortoleto right now. As Bortoletto's going slowly. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the transponders here, if there is genuine issues. No, there is a transponder issue with a couple of the drivers. Apologies, Gasly fans, because Bortoletto is in a battle there for P8 from Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Bortoletto and Behrman, as Behrman actually just gets past Gabriel Bortoletto there as Bortoletto is being closed down upon by Max Verstappen. So watching the race start again, by the way, Charles Leclerc has about 6 car lengths on George Russell at the exit of turn 1. It was an unbelievable race start from Charles Leclerc. Just watching it here as George Russell is going on the attack again as Antonelli is looking to get past Isaac Hadjar as he does indeed. But Charles Leclerc, oh my goodness, it's like a cheat code. It's like a cheat code watching the onboard of Charles Leclerc's there race start as George Russell gets up really close to Charles Leclerc there, under 2 tenths you can see, but doesn't have enough to get past Charles. A brilliant start for him. And then watching the onboard of Arvid Lindblad just watched the seas part ahead of him as he went down into the top 4, but then I think it was in the top 3 actually. But here we go. We have completed 6 laps of racing here. Is Charles Leclerc leading from George Russell with Lewis Hamilton in P3. There is now a little gap forming between Kimi Antonelli. But Kimi Antonelli in that Mercedes, no doubt, will be looking to close down the gap on Lewis Hamilton and make this a 4-way fight very quickly as Isaac Hadjar is in P5. Arvid Lindblad is P6 being chased down by Lando Norris. A brilliant start to his first F1 race in his F1 career. The only rookie on the grid, the 18-year-old Lindblad. Norris is in P7 with the sole McLaren driver out here with Oscar Piastri crashing on the outlap of the reconnaissance lap before the race even got underway. Esteban Ocon is in P8, up 5 positions. Gasly is up 5 positions into P9. Behrman is in P10, being chased down by Max, who is up 9 places and dispatched Gabriel Bortoleto last lap around. And it's no doubt he will be dispatching Ollie Behrman very quickly this lap as well in P11, and he will then make his way into the top 10 after starting P20 today. Gabriel Bortoleto is P12 with Albon in P13. Sainz is up 7 places into P14. Colapinto is 15th. Alonso is 16th. Nelson is 17th. The worst starts out of anyone on the grid today. Perez is 18th, Bottas 19th, and Lance Stroll is 20th. As Russell is stating, that was very dangerous by Leclerc, especially so George Russell not happy with the defence of Charles Leclerc, and this is a concern of mine personally, Charles Leclerc fans, this year. We saw George Russell and Charles Leclerc tangle a few times last year, and Leclerc moved very aggressively numerous times in the braking zone last year, which thankfully George Russell was able to avoid. And well, will we see Charles Leclerc get caught up in an accident this year because of his moving under braking? I really hope we don't. But George Russell, of course, concerned about that at the moment. But he's not concerned right now because it looks like he's breezing past Charles Leclerc. They're side by side into turn 3. They're side by side. Who's going to come out ahead? Charles Leclerc and George Russell fighting it out here. And Charles Leclerc, who has led from the start of this race, is now behind George Russell as Russell gets ahead of Leclerc into turn 3. Great racing action here between two brilliant drivers. But Charles Leclerc is going to come back at George, no doubt. He's half a second behind. He has the straight line mode activated, as will George Russell. But here we go. The slipstream, it seems to be powerful, even though that Mercedes is more efficient with its battery deployments. Leclerc gets back past Russell down into turn 9. And that is the trade-off that we are seeing here as Arvid Lindblad is looking to be attacked by Lando Norris. This is providing great racing right now because there is a balance happening right here in real time. Where do you use your energy? Yes, track position may be key, but of course, if you are going to try and get a move done and use more energy into a certain corner, you're then going to leave yourself vulnerable at the next corner, as I think I've seen from George Russell. And well, while he's on the attack of Charles Leclerc, he also needs to keep one eye on his rear view mirrors because Lewis Hamilton is coming up fast. But George Russell is again side by side with Charles Leclerc into turn 1. Is he going to be able to hold on to the lead here? I don't think he is, as they swap positions again. And all the while, George Russell is going to be under attack by Lewis Hamilton. They're going to be almost 3 abreast heading into turn 3. Oh my goodness, who is going to come out here? This could be an absolute horror situation here, but it's great racing, and they still survive as Lewis Hamilton couldn't get past George Russell, and this is going to be an opportunity for Charles Leclerc to run away here, as George Russell did make a move down into turn 1, but he locked up and went very deep, and that's why Charles Leclerc was able to regain the position. But George Russell, yes, while he's lost important time to Charles Leclerc now. Charles Leclerc is going to see an opportunity. He's 1 second ahead as Lewis Hamilton is 8 tenths behind, and all the while Kimi Antonelli is closing the gap as George Russell did unbelievably well to stay on the track at turn 3 when he was trying to overtake Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton nearly capitalised there, but you can see the top 3 is now about to become the top 4 because in clean air, Kimi Antonelli's been able to close up that gap and set a couple of fastest laps, a 23.6 last time around. He was a good second a lap quicker in the last few laps, and he's closed that gap. Lewis Hamilton's going for a move on George Russell, I think. Oh my goodness, they got very close there. Turn 11 incident involving Charles Leclerc has been noted. So Charles Leclerc's moving under braking has been noted, and it's something that we haven't discussed yet in the driving guidelines updated for this season, is that there is a line specific to moving under braking in the deceleration phase of the car. Of the move, and if Charles Leclerc has done that, he could be vulnerable to a penalty here. I'm yet to see a replay of that exact move, but Charles Leclerc needs to be careful, and drivers need to be careful this year of moving under braking. But it's now the top 4. Sergio Perez has got past Colapinto. Colapinto is the first driver to pit here in this race. He is dropping down to dead last, so maybe looking for some clean air, as maybe they've seen the pace of Kimi Antonelli in particular, and seen how much of an advantage that is. But we have the top 4 here: Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Kimi Antonelli. We were hoping this season would be just like this. We were, of course, down in the dumps yesterday as race fans after we saw such a wide gap to the top 2 of the Mercedes. And well, in clean air, undoubtedly, it seems that Mercedes is a machine to be. It's an absolute machine, but in dirty air, it is a different case altogether, as Charles Leclerc has proven, as there is no further investigation for Charles Leclerc's move into turn 11. So we are free to race as Max Verstappen sets the fastest first sector and is now up 11 positions into P9 as he dispatches Pierre Gasly there. And well, Max Verstappen, in the grand scheme of things, while the top 4 are fighting, he is only 15 seconds, just over 15 seconds behind the top 4 as it stands. Could we see Max Verstappen here starting from 20th? What a story that would be after all his complaints, after the dramatic crash yesterday in qualifying and his complaints and criticism of the regulations. It would be typical that in the first race of the season, Max Verstappen starts 20th, and could end up on the podium, maybe even snatching a win here. I wouldn't put it past him and the Red Bull team, because the top four, while they are fighting, this is beneficial to everyone involved. But Charles Leclerc, the gap to George Russell is 8 tenths. Of course, they need to still be careful of tyre management. That is still a factor here today. It is not disappearing this season, so there is still only going to be a certain amount of sustained pressure that they can have. As Isaac Hadjar is starting to fall through the field, is there an issue for Isaac Hadjar? Has he made contact? Is there an issue with the Red Bull powertrain of Isaac Hadjar? There is undoubtedly, as Pierre Gasly has come to a standstill as well, and this could be our first safety car. No, I think Gasly just has a transponder issue, but Isaac Hadjar has definitely come to a standstill. Oh, Alex Albon is moving as well. No, oh my God, what is happening with Isaac Hadjar? There's definitely something wrong here with the Red Bull car. He is dropping through the field. He is down in 15th, and we have a virtual safety car. We have a virtual safety car. Will anyone decide to take the cheap pit stop here? As it seems there's lots of smoke. Oh, the Red Bull powertrain is smoking, and we have the first engine issue of today, as that engine is on fire. Isaac Hadjar is safe. He is out of the car, but the Red Bull full powertrain has just gone pop. Isaac Hadjar, oh, that's a real shame for him, mate. Unfortunately, it seems the Red Bull second seat curse continues. Because he was going quite nicely in P5. That's a real shame for the Frenchman, not his issue, as Lando Norris decided to take the cheap pit stop there of a 5-second pit stop. The top four were unable to take advantage of that, as they'd already gone past the pit lane. But Max Verstappen now finds himself up into P6, up 14 positions right now he's up 14 positions right now. And Marshals are on track at turn 9. Are on turn 9 to remove the car from Isaac Hadjar. This should only be a VSC, as Hadjar has been able to find a safe place to move that car. Only lasted 12 laps, and boom, it does seem unfortunately that was the case. So, oh my goodness, what a start to this race. I need to take a breather and a sip of my energy drink. Ferrari, at this stage of the race, do have pace. They do have pace right now. Oh, my goodness. My goodness. Right, so let's have a rundown of this grid, shall we? Let's take an opportunity to have a rundown of this grid. Charles Leclerc leads from George Russell after a brilliant launch off the start. That Ferrari launch is definitely a thing to contend with, as we see the two Mercedes drivers pit right now. The two Mercedes drivers are pitting. Bold strategy decision here by Mercedes. And if you're going to have a concern of Mercedes this season, it would be the strategy department, and it would be also the pit stops for them. Because while they were dominant in the era, a bygone era, of course, over the last decade, their pit stops and their strategies, a little bit left was to be desired. But George Russell there has just got onto a brand new set of hard compound tyres, and he's got out, importantly, ahead of Arvid Lindblad. So, is this a good strategy decision by Mercedes? We will see. Or have Ferrari fumbled? Not entirely sure. But the VSC, as it stands, we know that Mercedes is quick in clean air, and I expect George Russell to be able to make good ground up here on the Ferraris. Have Ferrari maybe missed an opportunity here to pit? I'm now a little bit concerned. Now I look at it that George Russell got out ahead of Arvid Lindblad, because if Russell is able to get up to the back of the Ferraris quickly here, which I suspect he will do, because we know how they are in clean air, but the Ferraris in similar fashion could also get away quickly. We're going to see true race pace here from the Ferrari comparison to the Ferraris and that of the Mercedes. Of course, under VSC conditions, they have to adhere to a delta right now. As Bottas was going quite slowly there. Is Bottas okay? He's coming. Bottas is trundling into the pit lane. I think this could be, unfortunately, an early retirement for Valtteri Bottas, and we could have 4 cars gone here before the race has even got going. As Valtteri Bottas, it's not looking good for Cadillac. As Hamilton says, at least one of us should have come in. Ferrari! What are you doing? Lewis Hamilton on the radio already. It's only the 13th lap, 14th lap now of the season, and we potentially already have our first Ferrari fumble. As Lewis Hamilton is questioning the strategy of Ferrari and asking at least one of us should have come in. Because while both Mercedes have come in, and you expect Kimi Antonelli to quickly dispatch Arvid Lindblad, as Bottas, thankfully, is back out on track. So I don't know why he was going so slowly in the pit lane. The Ferrari mechanics are out in the pit lane waiting for someone to come in, but we know that is not the case. But we are now green light, and we are now green back on track, and we go racing again. The gap is 10.2 seconds to George Russell and that of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. How quickly will that gap be closed? We will see. But there's a 5-second advantage now that the Mercedes have over both Ferrari drivers, as they got the cheap pit stop there. And you can see that gap, that interval. I'm intrigued to see how quickly it closes to Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. But nonetheless, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton currently out front, leading this race with George Russell in P3. Arvid Lindblad, a great race thus far for him. P3 for the only rookie on the grid as Fernando Alonso comes into the pit lane. It seems like the Aston Martins are not doing too bad thus far. They are still out there. They're still making ground. They have made a pit stop, so that's why they are a little bit far off of Colapinto and Lawson. But it does seem at the moment, that there is a clear difference between single lap pace and race pace when the car is on higher fuel, it seems. But as we cross the line here with 44 laps remaining of this 58-lap race at Albert Park, it is Charles Leclerc leading from Lewis Hamilton in P2, up 3 and 5 places respectively after great launches at the start, and Lewis Hamilton dispatching Arvid Lindblad and Isaac Hadjar. We have George Russell in P3 after making a pit stop there under the VSC, and his 5 seconds. Stop the car, Alonso. Alonso has been told to stop the car. We have an issue. Confirmation of Aston Martin's first retirement. And, well, if you had less than 20 laps, you will be a winner right now. Alonso is out. And that is a real shame. I can't believe Lance Stroll, who did no running at all yesterday, is still out there. But he is in a very slow Aston Martin, and we'll see how much longer he will be able to stay out there. But he's outlasted his teammate Fernando Alonso after doing no running at all on Saturday. So, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are being chased down by a rate of knots. They've just lost half a second to George Russell, who is on the hard compound tyre in that first sector. My goodness. Let's see how quickly he closes down this gap here. But Ferrari, I think, have definitely missed an opportunity, because it does seem that Mercedes it's not necessarily the easiest. It is easy to overtake, but it's not comfortable to overtake if you are in the dirty air for a car that has an advantage like the Mercedes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. As you can see right now, Kimi Antonelli still not able to dispatch Arvid Lindblad, who's on 14-lap-old mediums. And, well, who is right behind them? Max Verstappen in P6, up 14 places right now. But let's stay on board with Kimi Antonelli, shall we? He is looking like he's going to get a comfortable overtake here on Arvid Lindblad down into turn 1, and he has indeed. And also, Sergio Perez is looking at an attack by Liam Lawson down there, who had the worst start of anyone today on the grid. He lost 9 positions, 10 positions at the start, as Lewis Hamilton is told. Hang on. As Lewis Hamilton is told, Russell is 10 seconds behind, and he went 10 seconds. Well, it's not 10 seconds now, Lewis, because it is under 9 seconds, and the purple lap there for George Russell, almost 9/10 quicker, nearly a full second quicker than that of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. But he has been reiterated that he is on plan A. They are on plan A, as there is swap of positions there for Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon at the back, as Alex Albon is coming under attack by Sergio Perez, of all people. Where is Liam Lawson? No, sorry, Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri Bottas is lap down. Apologies there. So our first lap car of today is Valtteri Bottas in the Cadillac. We have lost Fernando Alonso, Isaac Hadjar, Oscar Piastri, and Nico Hülkenberg. We have 18 cars remaining here on this Australian Grand Prix, as Pierre Gasly's transponder is scaring me every single time that I look at the Frenchman in that Alpine, because I think he's crashed, but it's just a delay in the transponder from the Mercedes-powered unit there. But up front, Charles Leclerc updates and Lewis Hamilton updates. It is Charles Leclerc leading by 1.5 seconds from Lewis Hamilton. George Russell closing down that gap on a fresh set of hards. He is 8.3 seconds behind. That lap last time around wasn't as quick as it was previously, as Lawson now dispatches Sergio Perez down into turn 11. Well, I say that, Sergio Perez is looking to come back at him, as these two, no love lost between them, of course. Remember, Liam Lawson flipping the bird to Sergio Perez at his home race in Mexico. It was 2 years ago. And, well, Lawson now gets past comfortably past Sergio Perez in that Cadillac. And Lawson, well, there is pace in that Racing Bulls because Arvid Lindblad is up in P5. But he is being chased down by Max Verstappen, who is in P6 and looking to gain 15 positions thus far in this race. He's on the alternative strategy as well, Max Verstappen. Where could he finish today? Undoubtedly, it looks like he's going to finish in the top 5 because the McLaren of Lando Norris is really struggling here. Not entirely sure what is going wrong with Lando Norris's car, but that McLaren has been not at the races here this weekend at all. Plagued with reliability issues, and it seems that has carried over to this race as there are a few track limits being picked up now. Bortoletto has one, Gasly has one, and Albon has one. Franco Colapinto is at the back, is down in 16th place after serving a stop-go penalty for a a start infringement. Not entirely sure where it came from, but the Mercedes are flying right now. Charles Leclerc just did a 24.3 last lap. Well, George Russell did a 22.7. They're 1.5 seconds quicker at the moment. George Russell in particular he is flying. That gap is now down to 7.5 seconds. And, well, is a very long way still to go in this race. But with how ominous that Mercedes looks in clean air, have Ferrari missed a trick here by not at least pitting one of their drivers to stay in front of the Mercedes, or at least apply the pressure? Because it did look like at the start of this race, in the first 15 laps, that the Mercedes were coming unstuck behind the Ferrari cars. As Charles Leclerc is looking to overtake, as there's a yellow flag, as Bottas has come to a stop. We have a yellow flag, and, well, they would be wanting a safety car right now, the Ferrari team. Are they going to bank on a cheap pit stop right now? Because where has Valtteri Bottas stopped that car? They're coming round. The last corner now. Have they missed an opportunity? Oh, it's a VSC, and they've just, oh my goodness, you could not time that safety car any more worse. F in the chat for Ferrari, because that VSC, that was their opportunity to get back on the level playing field with the Mercedes, and, well, they have just gone round the pit lane entry as the VSC has been thrown. Unbelievable here. And guess who is going to get a cheap pit stop? Guess who is going to get a cheap pit stop? Oh, yes, you are thinking correctly. Max Verstappen. He is in the pit lane. He is going to be gaining 5 seconds on both Ferraris right now. That could not have been timed any worse. And, well, could Ferrari maybe have taken a gamble there and made at least one of those drivers being brought into the pit lane, considering where Valtteri Bottas' car is positioned, which is, as, oh my goodness, Arvid Lindblad and Max Verstappen racing in the pit lane entry there. Arvid Lindblad closing the door on Max Verstappen because Max was trying to get round the outside and do a sneaky move on the pit lane entry. Very, very good racing there. But how long will this VSC last? The Ferrari may still benefit from this. They may still benefit from this. I think they will. Because, oh, pit lane entry has been closed. Oh, my goodness. The pit lane's been closed. You couldn't make this up. You couldn't make this up. Not only have they mistimed the VSC and not gambled on one of them coming into the pit lane, they've now made their way round to the pit lane again with the VSC still enabled, and the pit lane has been closed. So they cannot take advantage of this VSC pit stop. Wow. Unbelievable scenes here. Because there'll be a recovery vehicle of Valtteri Bottas at the pit lane entry, so the pit lane will be blocked right now. So, oh my God, what are we seeing, ladies and gents? By the way, thank you for everyone tuning in. If you are enjoying this stream and enjoying this race, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit over 75,000 subscribers on our way, on the road to 100,000. So thank you, everyone. This will be the first of many races this season, and what a race it has been thus far. We're only 20 laps into this race. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely have been enjoying it. We have marshals on track at pit entry right now, and the pit lane entry is now open. So the pit lane entry is now open, and the VSC is now coming to an end. And, well, George Russell is 9 seconds behind. But what an unfortunate turn of circumstances here. I can't imagine it's going to be the last VSC or safety car that we see today, but we've now lost 5 cars today. We are one away. I said we'd lose at least, we'll have 16 cars at least finishing, and Valtteri Bottas' car literally just turned itself off. Valtteri Bottas's car coming into the last corner just turned itself off. A real shame for Valtteri Bottas in that Cadillac, but we have now lost Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, Isaac Hadjar, Oscar Piastri and Nico Hülkenberg from this race. Reliability. Who thought reliability wasn't going to be an issue here in testing after we saw hardly any breakdowns? Well, that is not the case here, undoubtedly here, as they are now pushing these cars to the limit. And, well, Max Verstappen is on the back of Arvid Lindblad. How hard will Arvid Lindblad be able to fight here? They're on different compounds of tyre, and Max Verstappen in that Red Bull powertrain. One of them has already gone pop today in the form of Isaac Hadjar, which is why he is out of this race. He was running in P5 at the time, but Max Verstappen in the slipstream of Arvid Lindblad. He may hate these regulations, but he's still a racer at heart, as he's now up 14 positions and dispatches Arvid Lindblad, as does Esteban Ocon dispatch Gabriel Bortoleto, and we have the two Haas drivers of Behrman and Ocon up 4 places apiece into P8 and P9. But Gabriel Bortoleto is looking to come back at Esteban Ocon there, down into turn 11, and he does indeed. But they're still side by side, Esteban Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto. Two good racers, one promising rookie and one experienced driver who we know loves to go wheel to wheel. And, well, former teammates Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly are now just a touch away from each other as Gabriel Bortoleto regained that place down into turn 12 there. A good return of the overtake. But as we rejoin the battle at the front, it is Charles Leclerc leading from Lewis Hamilton by 1.4 seconds. Still yet to make a pit stop either of the two Ferraris, as there's an incident involving Perez and Lawson noted for forcing another driver off the track. No love lost between those two, of course, with a history, as Pierre Gasly looking for a move on Ocon. But that gap that was 10 seconds when the Mercedes decided to pit at the end of on the first safety car, as Lewis Hamilton is saying, my tyres are still okay. Do not box me at the same time. Lewis Hamilton, nice and aggressive on the radio to the Ferrari strategy team. Do not box us at the same time as Lewis Hamilton is managing this race, which we do think will be a one-stop here with 38 laps remaining. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, while they pitted under the VSC, do still have to take this hard compound tyre very long to the end of this race. But Pierre Gasly did get past Esteban Ocon there last time around into P3. So Esteban Ocon, who did get up into P9, now finds himself down 2 positions into P11. But that gap, Russell to Hamilton, is now 5.3 seconds as Russell is taking fastest lap after fastest lap. Kimi Antonelli also now into the 22s as well, as both Mercedes drivers are pushing to close this gap on Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. And I do suspect that we will probably see more. Safety cars as this race goes on. Oh my goodness, can you imagine if Verstappen gets on the podium and Ferrari doesn't? It would be absolutely obscene as Antonelli sits another fastest first sector there. Max Verstappen now finds himself 32 seconds behind Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, but he has made a pit stop, and of course has made a cheap pit stop over the two Ferrari drivers as they are about to approach and lap Sergio Perez. Hopefully will we see more retirements? Hopefully we don't, but it will be interesting to see. We've already seen an engine go pop in the form of Isaac Hadjar with that Red Bull powertrain smoking on fire. We saw Oscar Piastri crash on the opening lap of the reconnaissance laps on his way round to the grid. Dramatic for the Aussie, and the Aussie curse, unfortunately, still continues. And he was out before the race even started. We saw Nico Hülkenberg start from the pit lane, and I think he also retired before the race even started as well. We've seen Fernando Alonso, an early retirement for him, even though he did all of the practice and the running in qualifying yesterday. At least he went out in Q1, that is. He is out before his teammate Lance Stroll, who has just been lapped now by Kimi Antonelli in P17 he is, and trying to chase down Sergio Perez, who is being lapped as well by the leaders. So as we have a rundown of this grid, that gap is closing from George Russell to Lewis Hamilton, those top two. Charles Leclerc in P1 with Lewis Hamilton in P2, up 3 places and 5 places on merit. Brilliant start by Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, respectively. That Ferrari power unit just launching off of the line like we saw in testing. It is real. They do have an advantage on the race start as George Russell spun up his rear tyres, as did Kimi Antonelli, and they got swamped down into turn 1. But they may have made a mistake by not pitting under the VSC. They say they're still plan A, but we will see. Lewis Hamilton managing this race, sitting comfortably behind Charles Leclerc, insists, do not box me at the same time as Charles Leclerc. He does not want the double stack. He says his tyres are good right now, but George Russell is closing down that gap on the hard compound tyre, but still needs to take these tyres a very long way in this race if he is going to hold on to track position and win. But we have seen the pace of that Mercedes in clean air is definitely something to behold, just like we saw in qualifying yesterday with the 8 tenths advantage they had over the rest of the field. But it does seem that it isn't going to be plain sailing for them this season with those race starts and with him coming unstuck behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc earlier on, as Kimi Antonelli now sets the fastest lap of the race of 1:22.582. Lando Norris in a bit of no man's land today. That sole McLaren driver out there in P5. That McLaren definitely seems to have had multiple reliability issues this week, and Lando Norris will just be happy probably to bring that car home in fifth as it stands with 35 laps remaining. Max Verstappen is closing down that gap though on Lando Norris, so it's probably a matter of time for when Verstappen catches Norris. But Norris is on the hard compound tyre, Max is on the mediums, equal laps last time around, 23.5 for both of them. Arvid Imblad doing very well right now as Ocon and Gasly are under investigation. No love lost between them two, of course. Former friends and teammates going at it as Gasly is in P10 as we go back to Arvid Lindblad, who is being chased down by Ollie Behrman, a standout rookie last year, trying to overtake the only rookie on the grid this year, Arvid Lindblad, who's having a tremendous start to his F1 career in P7, up 2 places. Behrman is up 4 places into P8. Bortoletto is 9th. Gasly up 4 places into 10th. Ocon is in 11th. Sainz is up 9 places. Sainz, who did no qualifying yesterday at all, did basically 2 laps or so before his engine cut out yesterday in that Williams, is up into P12, has the better of his teammate right now, and that he is in P12 looking to try and close down the gap on Ocon and could be an outside opportunity of scoring points today. The top 10 is only a few seconds away from him as Pierre Gasly's transponder scares me once again as it stops down into turn 9. We can see Liam Lawson, the biggest loser today thus far from the start-finish grid. He was in 15th, is in 14th, down 6 places, as Colapinto is in 15th, Perez is 16th, Stroll 17th, and we have Bottas, Alonso, Hadjar, Piastri, and Hulkenberg retired today. Over 75,000 subs. Thank you for that nice little achievement there, guys. Thank you very much. So we are approaching the halfway mark of this race. 34 laps remaining. It is Charles Leclerc leading from Lewis Hamilton, a 2.2 second gap between the two of them, and it's now a 2.2 second gap to 2.6 second gap between George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. He has been dramatically closing that gap and is around a second per lap quicker. Incident involving Ocon noted driving unnecessarily slowly, as not entirely. Oh, little bit of a cheeky late move there under braking for Ocon, and they did make contact. There was contact made between Ocon and Gasly. That's why that incident is being investigated. And Gasly's front wing end plate is chipped somewhat, but still intact. As Fernando Alonso's back out? What? Fernando Alonso is back out as we have Charles Leclerc in the pits. Charles Leclerc is in the pits as I was watching Fernando Alonso back out of the pit lane. So Fernando Alonso is 2 laps down as George Russell now closing in on Lewis Hamilton, who's Lewis Hamilton leads for the first time in a race in his Ferrari career, as Lewis Hamilton is out in the lead at the moment. Not out, as Charles Leclerc pits and is onto a set of hard compound tyres. So his tyres are now 13 laps fresher than that of Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. We'll see how that fares for them. Of course, if there is a safety car here, then they will bunch up the field. But Lewis Hamilton, let's see if he's now going to put his foot down. He says his tyres are good. He's been managing his tyres, and he's going to try and go long in this race. It'd be interesting to see if he does pit or if he's going to try and maybe do an overcut on his teammate here. We will see. But George Russell undoubtedly closing down the gap on Lewis Hamilton, and he's the quickest car out on track right now. A 22.879 second lap it was compared to Lewis Hamilton's 23.6. But Lewis is now in clean air. But it'll be interesting to see if Lewis can hold up maybe the Mercedes of George Russell and Antonelli, or will he come in and pit? Let's see. Is he going to respond? Is he going to come into the pit straight after his teammate Charles Leclerc? Is he going to be into the pit lane? He isn't. No, Lewis Hamilton is staying out. Lewis Hamilton is extending this stint. And well, Lewis, who has been looking after his tyres while in the wake of the dirty air of Charles Leclerc, is in this race, and we'll see with these cars, with management being key, not just the tyres, but of course the battery and everything else that goes with it. How will Lewis Hamilton fare in this race right now? Interesting. Very, very interesting. Why not take the mediums a little longer and then put on new mediums? Well, that would be committing to a 2-stop, and you have to mandatory change to 2. You have to use 2 different types of compound. So if he changes to the medium compound tyre, it would mean he'd be committing to a 2-stop because he'd have to make another pit stop onto a set of softs. So he will no doubt switch onto the hard compound tyre. but wants to try and take this medium compound tyre a bit longer here so that he has fresher tyres towards the end. So we'll see how this plays out for them. But George Russell is now in the slipstream of Lewis Hamilton, and he's undoubtedly the quicker car. But we saw George Russell struggle to get past Charles Leclerc. And, well, at this stage of the race, with us not even at the halfway mark, how punchy in his defence is Lewis Hamilton going to get? And, of course, if there is an overtaking opportunity back past George Russell, will he take it? Let's see as he makes his way around turn 13 now. The top two here, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, former teammates. One now in red and one still in the Mercedes overalls. And Lewis Hamilton stays out. So Lewis Hamilton still extending this stint as George Russell is now in the slipstream and has the opportunity to use overtake mode if he so wishes. But of course, if you use overtake mode, you could be at a detriment of being out of battery for too long when it comes to the next few corners, because yeah, it's not a surplus that you have available to you that is stored elsewhere. It is something that is taken out of the battery. So yeah, I think, might see the overtake mode maybe not utilised as much as we think it's going to be. And it will be purely on pace alone, as George Russell looks like he has the pace because he made up 6 tenths last lap around, and he is well within the slipstream of Lewis Hamilton, as Lewis Hamilton there, I think, has already maybe ceded the position to George Russell. It's showing on the track map that George Russell is already ahead of Lewis. No, just a transponder issue there, but I imagine he won't be behind Lewis Hamilton for long as they head into the braking zone of turn 9, and it does seem that George Russell has regained the lead from Lewis Hamilton into turn 9. But there is a very long way to go in this race still. Lewis Hamilton probably thinking of the bigger picture. Will he come back at George Russell? I'm not so sure. He is the only driver out there yet to make a pit stop as Lance Stroll comes out of the pit lane. Fernando Alonso is 11 laps down to the leaders, by the way. 11 laps down and 10 laps down to his teammates in P17. And Lewis Hamilton still... Lewis Hamilton pits now. So Lewis Hamilton pits. I thought he was staying out. So Lewis Hamilton stayed out for a couple of laps longer and is now into the pit lane. So both Ferrari drivers about to complete their pit stops. We'll see if... it is going to be a good pit stop for Lewis Hamilton. Should comfortably get out ahead of Lando Norris. Is it going to be... how close is the gap going to be to Charles Leclerc? Charles Leclerc has got 3 lap fresher tyres. And Lewis Hamilton now will be taking these hard compound tyres to the end of the race. 30 laps. And well, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli do still have to take these hard compound tyres quite some distance here in the remainder of this race. They have already done 16 laps. And they would have done 46 laps by the time they come to the end of this race. And well, are they going to have enough tyre left? Will they have enough of a pace advantage over the Ferraris, as the gap is 7.7 seconds to Kimi Antonelli from Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli, and it is 15.2 seconds to George Russell. Of course, if there is a red flag, another standing restart would be tremendous for Ferrari. They would love a red flag and a stoppage right now, because after the launch that we saw at the start of this race, it would be almost a guaranteed 1-2 for Ferrari, wouldn't it? But as it stands, it is George Russell leading from Kimi Antonelli by 7.3 seconds on the hard compound tyre each, as George Russell is told, okay, I think the one stop is viable. So George Russell says the one stop is viable. I'd be very surprised if they would want to take another pit stop unless it was under a safety car condition, because they do have track position and they do seem to have the pace in clean air right now. But Charles Leclerc did a 23.0 last time around, and Lewis Hamilton will be probably on that pace similarly soon as well. So we'll keep a keen eye on those interval times and those lap times, as that gap could close, and Charles Leclerc and Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari could have better race pace at this stage of the race compared to that of Russell and Antonelli in the Mercedes. So still lots of twists and turns left in this race. We're not even at the halfway mark yet. It is Russell leading from Kimi Antonelli, Charles Leclerc in P3 with Lewis Hamilton in P4. Lando Norris is in P5 with Max Verstappen closing down that gap to Lando Norris. 6 tenths quicker last lap around on the medium compound tyre to that of Lando Norris on the hard. And it will be... still incident involving Ocon will be investigated after the race, driving unnecessarily slowly. So no doubt maybe wanting to see if it was due to a battery recovery issue or something. We do know that the closing speeds are going to be dramatic here this season due to that battery deployment. And we've seen obviously the massive drop off with super clipping and so forth of what can happen if someone is fully deploying and someone isn't, especially with that 50 km/h drop off. That is very, very dramatic. So we'll see what comes of that. But Pierre Gasly still needs to be keeping an eye on his rearview mirrors as Esteban Ocon is looking to get back into the top 10 and score that solitary point. Even though there are 22 cars on the grid this year, it is still only the top 10 that score points. As that gap to Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli is 7.9 seconds. What is the lap time for Charles Leclerc when he crosses over the line? It is slower than that of Kimi Antonelli, but it is 2 tenths quicker than that of George Russell, nearly 3 tenths quicker, as Lewis Hamilton did a 23.4 on his first full lap there on the hard compound tyre, looking to get these up to temperature. But Lando Norris, 2.6 seconds is the gap to him and Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez there, down in 16th. He has been lapped and he's being noted for ignoring blue flags. So hopefully Sergio Perez doesn't get a penalty. Not that it really matters because he's not in the points, but Sergio Perez and Cadillac, not been the best day for them, not been the best weekend for them. Only brand new team, fully brand new team on the grid, as Audi did take over the existing Sauber team. And well, how are Audi getting on? Bortoletto is in 9th, trying to chase down Ollie Behrman. He is looking to score the first points of Audi this season. And Nico Hulkenberg didn't even start this race as they ran into an issue on the outlap. So really, there's starting to be a bit of a field spread right now as we're approaching the middle part of this race, the halfway mark of this race. But no doubt things will converge towards the end. We can see that the closest out on track right now is Gasly and Esteban Ocon, who have already made contact with one another. And Ocon looks like he could be going for a move down into turn 9 if he has anything to say about it. He's closer than he was last time around. Ollie Behrman is now within 1 second of Arvid Lindblad as well. Let's keep an eye on Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, shall we, as they make their way down into turn 9. There is definitely a noticeable slipstream effect that we have seen as Ocon does the fastest middle sector of anyone while in the slipstream of the Mercedes power unit Alpine in Pierre Gasly, but not able to get past him there. That update on Lando Norris and Max Verstappen for the fight for P5. Lando Norris on 20 lap-old hards and Max on 12 lap-old mediums, or 13 lap-old mediums now, is now under 2 seconds behind Lando Norris. So Max Verstappen eyeing that top 5. He is the sole Red Bull driver out there after an unfortunate reliability issue and engine fire in the back of that Red Bull powertrain, or Red Bull car in the Red Bull Ford powertrain of Isaac Hadjar, which retired him from 5th place. So it's a real shame for him after a great qualifying yesterday and even an okay start to his first race in a Red Bull car. So a real shame for him. But not the only one today. Piastri updates. Yes, he didn't even get to start this race, ladies and gents. He was out after the 4th corner on his outlap round to his grid slot. So very, very embarrassing for Oscar Piastri. Do think that it was more so the car's issue than it was his, but he does have to take some blame somewhat by going over the curb as much as he did. But really, really uncharacteristic of Oscar Piastri and the McLaren. We've seen many, many mistakes, well, I say mistakes, and mechanical issues this year already. So, yeah, super, super intriguing, really. So, nearly, we are at the halfway mark now. Are we at the halfway mark? Is it 26 laps remaining? I think that is, no, we're more than that. We're more than at the halfway mark, aren't we? No, 30, yeah, we're over the halfway mark of this race now. It's George Russell leading from Kimi Antonelli by 5.8 seconds as George's lap times have started to fall off somewhat. I don't know if he's managing his tyres. Maybe he is. The gap to Charles Leclerc is 13.5 seconds. So Charles Leclerc in the sub 23 seconds. Lewis Hamilton around the 23s at the moment, so he doesn't have the pace of his teammate, but there's still a way to go in this race. Is that George Russell stopped out on track, or is that a transponder issue? That is definitely a transponder issue, as George Russell is not stopped out on track, undoubtedly. So do not scare us there. As Antonelli has been told, we're going to do the one stop, and says that's going to be brave. We're thinking of going to the end, but let us know what you think about the tyres. And Antonelli says that's going to be brave. Interesting. So will the Mercedes have to pit again? Track surface is slippery in sector 13, which is turn 13. So not entirely sure why it is slippery in turn 13. Maybe there's a bit of debris there that has popped out on track as Gabriel Bortoletto is trying to get past the lap car of Sergio Perez, as Lance Stroll has been lapped 2 times and Fernando Alonso has been able to make it back out on track. That is absolutely amazing. As Lando Norris has been told, I cannot do 26 more laps on this set of hard compound tyres. So Lando Norris is stating he can't take this tyre to the end of the race. So there is looking like there will be another pit stop for Mercedes, unless George Russell is purposely trying to go as slow as he is right now. You can see a 23.8 last time around. Is he trying to eke out these tyres? There's a VSC. Oh, there's a VSC. Where has that come from? Is that due to debris as can only be due to the debris out on track. There's marshals out on track at turn 8. Out on track at turn 8. There's cars going through turn 8. What is happening? Is this because of the gravel? Was someone taking an excursion through the gravel of turn 6 and 7? Has a front wing end plate come off maybe? Waiting to see exactly what this is. Gabriel Bortoletto is deciding to pit. And, well, this will be an opportunity for Mercedes to pit now if they want to, because it'll be another 5-second advantage if they decide to pit right now. Oh, the VSC is ending just in time, as there is indeed not a front wing end plate. Here we go. If you had it on your bingo card, one of the deflectors, you know, the things, the barge boards on the inside behind the front wheels, those are, one of those was on the racetrack, and it's come from the Cadillac, the Sergio Perez, and it's just failed. It's just failed. Maybe that's due to contact with Liam Lawson earlier on in the race, but the the part on the Cadillac car has just failed as he was going around turn 8 to turn 9, and it ended up on the track. So that's why we had a brief VSC. We saw a few drivers there take the opportunity of a cheap pit stop, but it was not soon enough for... It was not out there long enough for George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, as we have Lando Norris now pitting. He said he couldn't take these tyres to the end of the race, as Max Verstappen is now up into P5. Max Verstappen, he started 20th, and he now finds himself in P5, but undoubtedly he'll also have to make a second pit stop here today, as the tyres are seeming, and it's positive for us here this year. But a circuit like Albert Park, a circuit that is notoriously known, really, for not having issues with tyre degradation, well, it seems that this is turning out to be probably a two-stop race, as drivers are going to struggle with these new regulations, with these cars being more slidey and less downforce and less aero-dependent in the corners. That means that there is more tread that is being worn off, and it seems that these drivers cannot now take hard compound tyres for a whole race duration. Well done, Pirelli, it seems. Well done, Pirelli. So, yes, a second pit stop there for Lando Norris. He's now on the mediums and will be looking to take this to the end of the race, which he'll undoubtedly be able to do with less fuel in his car right now. How are the Mercedes boys going to get on? Are they going to push? 23.0 from George Russell, the fastest last sector for him of today. That's the fastest he's done all day, a 35.8, as has Kimi Antonelli as well. So I think the Mercedes might now be on the push to the end here, because they are going to have to do a second pit stop. Remember, it is a 20-odd second pit stop lost time here. Right now, if George Russell was to pit, he would come out just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who finds himself trying to lap that of Liam Lawson and Franco Colapinto ahead of him. Charles Leclerc is looking to lap Lance Stroll and is trying to close down the gap. So if Russell and Antonelli are going to pit again, they will come out behind, or at least one of them will come out behind Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc will gain the lead. So it's going to be a very interesting turn of events and a very interesting last 23 laps here. We'll keep an eye out on the lap time of George Russell and Antonelli when they cross the start-finish line to see if they are on full push mode, as Charles Leclerc loses a couple of tenths there, around half a second by lapping Lance Stroll. It's an interesting race. I think this has been a real interesting race thus far, guys. I don't know about you, but George Russell, let's keep an eye on him as he crosses the start-finish line. And, well, George Russell does a 22.7, so they are undoubtedly on full push mode right now, Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. A 35, another purple last sector for Kimi Antonelli, a 22.8, compared to Charles Leclerc's lap time when he will cross the line. Let's see what he does. Charles Leclerc does a 24.3. Okay, yeah, he was lapping Lance Stroll, so that's not really a good barometer there and a good comparison, as Lance Stroll is into the pits again. Is this a retirement for Lance Stroll and a final retirement? 37 laps will be valiant from Aston Martin, and that's more than anyone expected them to do. Fernando Alonso is now officially noted as retired. He came back out, and he is now officially retired. Is Lance Stroll going to get back out there, or is he retired as well? I do suspect him being on the soft compound tyres was not necessarily a good strategy decision for them at the time. And this is probably the second retirement for Lance Stroll. Lost hope for Ferrari win, maybe podium at least, because at this rate, Max will overtake and take the podium. I don't think so. I think Max is probably going to have to do I mean, it's going to be tricky for Max to try and take take these medium compound tyres to the end of the race. That's a tremendous amount of time. I think there is another pit stop in Max Verstappen, and I think Max's battle today is securing P5 against Lando Norris, and that'd be a good result considering where he started in P20. So, Lewis Hamilton's lap time last time around was a 23.3, so that was half a second off of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, and they are taking that tyre definitely to the end of the race. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, they are out there. They have track position, really. And George Russell, if he's trying to take these hard compound tyres to the end of the race, doing 22s right now is not the way to do it, I suspect. Still yet to see any correspondence between George Russell and his engineer. Kimi Antonelli did say that it was going to be difficult for him to take these tyres to the end of the race, and I suspect that's what they're trying to do now, is build up a gap. They have a 22.5 second gap to Lewis Hamilton. George Russell, if he did pit, it would be him coming out ahead of Lewis Hamilton, but undoubtedly Lewis just probably trying to save these tyres right now in the potential outcome of him having to defend from the Mercedes. So we'll see how that fares as Ocon gets past Gasly. Finally there, a fastest first middle sector for Esteban Ocon, and he regains that 9th place position from Pierre Gasly. Gabriel Bortoleto will be catching up to them very shortly, though, as he made a pit stop only a few moments ago. He is on brand new hard compound tyres, as is Alex Albon. Alex Albon, a good 29 seconds back from Gabriel Bortoleto, as Lando Norris gets past Ollie Bearman and will have his eyes set on Arvid Lindblad on this fresh set of medium compound tyres, which even in a struggling kind of no-man land McLaren today, he should be comfortably able to do. But what a great drive it has been from Arvid Lindblad in his first race in F1, currently in P6, and he's looking like he is fighting. His battle today is for P7 with Ollie Bearman, as they comfortably have a gap to Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly behind them. But Bortoleto on the brand new hard compound tyres could be a potential threat if they struggle with their tyres in the closing stages of this race with 20 laps remaining. So another 22.8 for George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. But Charles Leclerc just does the fastest lap of the race, a 22.5. So here we go. Lewis Hamilton does a 22.6 as well. Is this now where, with 20 laps remaining, it is attack mode for both Ferraris? Because they have to do one of two things here. They have to they have to force Mercedes' hands. They have to try and get Mercedes to use their tyres up, which is what they're trying to do now. Because Mercedes have to, I think, they either have to hold on to track position, which is going to be tricky for them, because you suspect with the tyre advantage that Leclerc and Hamilton have, they will be able to catch up to them. Or Mercedes are going to have to pit again. But they're going to have to get the overtake done out on track. Yes, they'll have fresher tyres, but we saw how difficult that was at the start of the race. So this is going to be an interesting last remaining 19 laps here at Albert Park. Guys, if you have enjoyed this stream and this watch along thus far in this race, please hit that like and subscribe button. It'd be much appreciated. And of course, today's sponsor is NordVPN. You can get a huge discount and 4 months free by using my code, which is in the description and in the pin chat, and use that link as well. So thank you to them for sponsoring today's stream. Should be the first of many. So, George Russell leads by 6.7 seconds ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Another 22.7. What's Charles Leclerc's lap time here? A 22.7 as well. So, yes, they're matching George Russell and Kimi Antonelli right now. Lewis Hamilton's lap time, it's a purple for Lewis Hamilton, a 22.5. So, they are starting to force George Russell and Kimi Antonelli's hand here, a Mercedes hand. 22 seconds. Lewis is still just outside of that pit stop loss window. So I would be not concerned as a Ferrari, but he really wants to get within that. But all the while, they are forcing Mercedes to use up more of their tyre to try and build up this pit stop gap. Because at the moment, if you're Mercedes, it's a real fine line. It's a real fine line of what you do. Do you give up the track position? But do you think you can take these tyres to the end of the race doing the pace that you can, knowing the pace and the tyre advantage that Ferrari have? Real interesting turn of events here, as Lando Norris has got past Arvid Lindblad, and then Lindblad is regaining the position back from Ollie Bearman. But no, Ollie Bearman seems like he's going to come back at Arvid Lindblad here. Two promising rookies. Bearman no longer a rookie, though, but Bearman is now up into P7. But will Arvid Lindblad be able to come back at him? They're on equal age tyres here, and Ollie Bearman in the Ferrari power unit has got past Arvid Lindblad, but for how long as Antonelli does the fastest last sector of the race. So that is undoubtedly going to be using more of those hard compound tyres, 28 laps that they've done. But let's stay on board with Ollie Behrman and Arvid Lindblad, as Arvid Lindblad in that Red Bull powertrain. He's got, I was going to say DRS, he's got the active aero open, but they're side by side down into turn 9, and Arvid Lindblad has to back out there, as he really had to back out. As you can see, a gap forming between Behrman and Lindblad Has been really punchy and racy today. If anyone's watched him in F2, definitely a good wheel-to-wheel racer, but has been prone to some very big mistakes, but he's been conducting himself very well today while being in the mix of it in his first ever F1 race. And well, with Liam Lawson, who is down in P13 after a horrendous race start, he is looking to get one over on his teammate and get 1-0 up in to start this season. That's a very important inter-team battle there that we'll keep an eye on as the year progresses. But George Russell, that gap to Charles Leclerc is staying around 16 seconds at the moment, with Lewis Hamilton 21.6 seconds behind now. But great racing out there on track. The cars definitely, I feel like the wheel-to-wheel racing has been very promising today. So even though these cars, of course, and the D rating and so forth and the super clipping, while it's not a pretty sight when it comes to qualifying, it has been enjoyable to see these cars go side by side, because they are beautiful cars, as you know. So just watching a replay here of Pierre Gasly making a move on Esteban Ocon. These two have been trading places for a few laps now, and great overtake around the outside into turn 9. That definitely didn't look slow whatsoever. So Lewis Hamilton clears Alex Albon there, and he does a 22.6. George Russell now into the 23s. So George Russell, is his tyres now starting to fall off a little bit here? Or no, I think that was maybe him just getting past Sergio Perez. Apologies. That'd be why his lap time was probably just slightly slower there. Kimi Antonelli a 22.9, and Max is in the pits. Max is in the pits. Second pit stop for Max Verstappen. This is going to be intriguing, because Lando Norris is making his way around the last corner now. And where will Max Verstappen come out? He's undoubtedly going to come out behind Lando Norris, but by how much? As you can see there, making his way to the end of the pit lane, and he's going to be on 7-lap fresher hard compound tyres. 2 brand new hards available for Max Verstappen today, compared to that of the mediums for Lando Norris. And we'll see how they fare. As Lindblad getting punchy on the radio. Let's try and get him one more time. He wants to go racing. Good to see. And he is looking to try and finish in the top 7. But Ollie Behrman also having a very good race there, as Ocon has looking to try and get back past Gasly, as they're fighting for the last points position here, as Gabriel Bortoleto, as we knew, would dispatch those two comfortably on brand new, much fresher hard compound tyres. So we'll see Gasly and Ocon fighting it out for the last points position, as George Russell is approaching Ocon and Gasly to lap nearly half of the field. Confirmation earlier on, if you haven't noticed, that both Aston Martins have retired from this race. So while Fernando Alonso did get back out there, Fernando Alonso has retired from this race, and Lance Stroll as well. So valiant effort from the Aston Martins. They did many more laps than I think any of us expected them to do. So they have made improvements over this weekend. But how much will it be? Of course, we've only with us heading straight into China at Shanghai next week. So no time for them to breathe at all. George Russell, fastest middle sector for George there, a 17.5. So George is starting to lose a bit of time. A 23.0 for him last time around. With 16 laps remaining. Do these hard compound tyres have enough? And well, I guess really what is maybe they're banking on here right now, the Ferraris, will be the hard compound tyre falling off of a cliff. I think Russell and Antonelli have to hold on to track position here. If they make another pit stop, they're all but giving the win to the Ferraris. And I think George Russell and Mercedes of Antonelli need to stay out here right now and take this to the end of the race. And if their tyres fall off, their tyres fall off. As Max Verstappen does the fastest first sector of the race, a 28.8. That's half a second quicker than that of Lando Norris, as he is on fresh, hard compound tyres. So it is going to be a matter of when, not if, Max Verstappen catches Lando Norris there. You can see that interval dramatically coming down there. Any interval time that is highlighted is a driver gaining on that driver ahead of them, if you are wondering. And of course, a fully filled out interval time there means that they're within the 1 second range where they can use overtake mode. But I don't think we've truly seen that activated here this today, and also we don't have the data available to know whether the overtake mode is either implemented, because that is kept super duper secret by the FIA and the teams, which is a real shame for us considering how important the battery deployment is for this year. But welcome everyone, hope you have enjoyed the stream today. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We're over 75,000 subscribers, 75,300. Thank you very much. Let's get this. Should we get this to 76,000? That'd be absolutely amazing here. Many more races ahead of us. We have 23 more race weekends as it stands. Who knows what's going to happen with Bahrain and Saudi? That is to be decided. But hopefully they will be able to go ahead in some capacity, maybe later on in the calendar year. But Max Verstappen, fastest lap of the race there. 1.2 seconds. Max was quicker than Lando last time around. Wowee. That is a super duper quick time compared to Lando Norris. But also, Lando Norris, that was a pretty slow lap time for him on mediums. So that McLaren, yeah, definitely kind of in no man's land this weekend. And Lando would just be happy probably to bring this car home across the finish line, considering what has already happened to Oscar Piastri before this race started. And of course with Isaac Hadjar's engine going pop as well. But we have 16 cars remaining here. If you said that if you voted in the poll earlier on before this race started of how many cars would finish this race, 16 or less, then you are, well, 16 basically, you are bang on the money right now. But there are 14 laps remaining. It is George Russell leading from Kimi Antonelli by 6.5 seconds. He has Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly ahead of him, who will be getting wave blue flags right now. There you go, right on cue. Esteban Ocon, blue flag for him, as he's in a battle with Pierre Gasly and has been for what feels like the majority of this race. Antonelli, 6.8 seconds. That gap to Charles Leclerc is 16 seconds to George Russell. And that's why really, with 14 laps remaining, they just have to stay out there, because the lap times right now for Leclerc and Hamilton aren't quick enough to close down that gap on Antonelli and Russell unless their tyres really do fall off of a cliff. It doesn't really seem like that the hard compound tyre is lasting a lot better than that medium earlier on in that first stint. Understandably so. Of course, the cars are a lot heavier. They're going to be taking more energy through them, taking a lot more hurt than they are as this car becomes lighter and lighter. And we saw, of course, the pace in that Mercedes yesterday in qualifying. But Ferrari, the question will be, could they have pitted under the VSC earlier, or at least split the strategy and pitted one of their cars under the VSC as the Mercedes did, which allowed them to gain track position when Ferrari eventually had to pit. They were on plan A, Ferrari, and well, I think there definitely was a potential of a race win today. Charles Leclerc, though, losing a bit of time to Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is 3.9 seconds behind Charles right now at 22.5 last time around. He made 6 tenths up on his teammate. So that's a super quick lap time from Lewis Hamilton there in relation to his teammate. And Lando Norris is reported, it's been told, Verstappen is pushing hard. He knows now this is his chance, his best chance to get you. Well, Lando Norris, he has Max Verstappen within 1 second, I think, now, as they make their way down the start-finish straight into the braking zone of turn 1, where Max Verstappen, of course, had that big moment yesterday, which sent him into the barriers. The car has performed very well today and should make it to the end of this race. Of course, we've lost one Red Bull powertrain car already in his teammate Isaac Hadjar, whose engine did go pop and was smoking quite a lot. But Max Verstappen has a tyre advantage. Even though it is a harder compound tyre, he has that extra grip available to him. So we'll see if he'll be able to utilise that. Looking to gain 15 positions here today after starting 20th. But Lewis Hamilton closing down the gap to his teammates. Is Charles Leclerc just starting to lose a bit of time to those ahead? Oh, he's gaining on Kimi Antonelli, though. As this lap, so 4 seconds, Lewis Hamilton just, I think, maybe had a little bit of a moment there and lost a bit of time out of the last couple of corners, as that gap has moved out to 4 seconds. A 22.9 for Hamilton and 22.8 for Leclerc. George Russell did a 23.7 as he lapped Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. So that's why his lap time was so much slower than why the interval times have dropped down. And well, Hamilton is well within that pit stop window now of the Mercedes of Russell and Antonelli. And well, yeah, really, this race now hinges on whether or not the hard compound tyre of Russell and Antonelli will fall off of the cliff, because they are on 44 lap old hards, and by the time they finish this race, they'll be over 40. They'll be at 46 laps on a set of hard compound tyres. So we will see. We haven't seen that in many a year. The Pirelli tyre have that moment of where it falls off of a cliff. It has always been a figurative, imaginary cliff. I'm not even sure it existed over the past 5, 6, 7 seasons, but it did it was once a thing in the Pirelli tyres, and will it have made a return here in 2026? We will find out with 12 laps remaining, 11 laps remaining when they cross the start-finish line. But Lando Norris under attack from Max Verstappen now as he's trying to get past Franco Colapinto, as Franco Colapinto is all the while allowing Max Verstappen here to close up the gap on Lando Norris, as Lando Norris is struggling to get past the Alpine of Franco Colapinto, who did have a penalty for a race start infringement and had to have a stop-go penalty. I'm not entirely sure what the reason for that was, but Lando Norris making his way through turn 9 and turn 9 now and turn 10, as there's half a second. Oh, Max did just lose a little bit of time there, around a tenth and a half or so on the exit of turn 10, but he's regaining it now as they have that front and rear wing open. So the slipstream, what I have noticed here, has been definitely powerful, what we've noticed here today. So my concern was that with the active aero, everyone having the ability to use active aero, that the drag was not going to be sufficient enough for the slipstream to really be that effective, and it does seem like from what we've seen today, it undoubtedly has been. So that's very positive for this season. But Max Verstappen is all over the rear wing of Lando Norris. Of course, these two, it went down to the wire last year for that World Championship. Lando Norris coming out on top eventually, but they're now fighting for the top 5 here, not fighting for the top step, as they so often did last year. So will he be able to overtake? And, well, if anything, Perez is going to come into the play into the hands of Max Verstappen here, as Lando Norris is going to have to contend with another lap car in a dirty air being displaced from that Cadillac, who is 2 laps down. But Russell, the gap to Russell and Antonelli is 5.3 seconds, as it was a 23.08 for Russell. Antonelli does a 22.992. As the Ferrari drivers, well, it seems like that they will be able to, George Russell and the Mercedes of Antonelli, take this tyre to the end of the race, as we said, unless it does fall off a cliff, but I don't expect it to, as Leclerc does a 22.8, but Lewis does a 22.7, and Lewis is closing down the gap somewhat to his teammate. But with it being the first race of the season, will they be allowed to fight? I'm not so sure. It may be a holding of position, considering where Leclerc started this race, qualifying 2 positions higher than his teammates. And it will still be a good result from Ferrari, but maybe a missed opportunity. And we will discuss that after the race, guys. Do not go anywhere. We will be staying live to take in everything that has gone on today, because there's a damn well a lot that has gone on in this first race, as we expected. I think it's been entertaining, and we will rate it after the race as well, with my driver ratings coming later on today as well in a separate video. So Max Verstappen all over the rear wing of Norris. He got a lot closer that time around, as they've now cleared Sergio Perez. And, well, Norris will have no dirty air to contend with, but he is on 7-lap-old softer medium compound tyres, and Max Verstappen is on fresher hard compound tyres. So this is the trade-off here, how will the softer compound fare to the younger, harder compounds? Red Bull powertrain has been proven today to be able to overtake, but they did equal lap times there last time around, 22.9 compared to Verstappen's 22.9 as well. And I think what's been interesting here is that the pace of Russell and Antonelli, of course, they're having to try and eke out these tyres, but the race pace today hasn't been as ominous as what we saw in the qualifying yesterday. There has been opportunities for Ferrari to win this and challenge Mercedes more so than what we're seeing right now, of course, then benefiting from that VSC. And it was a concern of mine heading into this season that while they may have created a good car, and I do have faith in the driver's abilities, there's still a very, very big question mark over the strategy team. And, well, I think we may have seen that today. So still yet 9 laps remaining here. George Russell leads from Kimi Antonelli. Charles Leclerc is P3 with Lewis Hamilton in 4th. Max Verstappen on the rear wing again of Lando Norris within that 1 second range. Of course, DRS no longer a thing here this year in 2026. So only has a limited amount of opportunity to use the overtake mode. You can only really use that once, probably every 5 laps. And even then, do you even want to use it? Because it could leave you at a detriment of the overall recharging of your battery. We have Ollie Behrman in P7, up 5 places, and has pulled away a decent gap from Lindblad now and should be bringing that Haas home. A great result it will be for him, and starting off and carrying on from where he ended last season, P7. Arvid Lindblad, a great start to his career in P8. He has a 3.9 second gap to Gabriel Bortoleto, and I think that would be more of the concern with 8 laps remaining, that Bortoleto could be with 15 fresher laps, fresher tyres. 15-lap fresher tyres on the hards compared to Lindblad. Lindblad may have his work cut out for him, but finishing in the points will still be a good result for him, especially after qualifying in Q3 yesterday. Gasly is up in the last points position in P10, even though there are 22 cars on the grid now, still only the top 10 score points. Seems a bit unfair to me, but hey-ho, there we are. As he is up 4 places and has been fighting Esteban Ocon forever in this race, as Ocon is in P11 looking to score that top 10. And I hope Ocon does get past Gasly. Apologies, Gasly fans, but that's because Ocon is in my fantasy team. So that'd be wonderful if he could get that position done. But he is being investigated for going too slowly, erratically slowly, earlier on in the race. So it could be a potential penalty coming Ocon's way as they're about to be lapped by Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. Alex Albon is up 3 places into P12. Liam Lawson is down 5 places. It's been a poor race from him considering, well, it's been a poor race anyway. He's been on the back foot considering he had a terrible race start. We'll have to look at that back. So much happened at the race start. Colapinto is up 2 places into P14. He got a penalty for a race start procedure infringement. Carlos Sainz up 6 places after not doing any qualifying yesterday. He's in P15. Perez in P16. Lance Stroll is back out. Oh, Lance Stroll's back out there. How have I only just noticed Lance Stroll's back out there? So the 2 Aston Martins came into the pits for an extended period of time, both of them, and both then later on went back out there. This is just a glorified test session for the Aston Martin. I get it to an extent, but bizarre turn of circumstances. So it's not a double retirement for Aston Martin right now, as Lance Stroll is out there 15 laps down. In P17. And we have lost Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas, Isaac Hadjar, Oscar Piastri, and Nico Hulkenberg. 5 cars from the first race of this season. So, with 7 laps remaining here, George Russell looks like he is going to bring this home. It doesn't seem like there's going to be this figurative cliff that we are expecting. If anything, it looks like Hamilton, if he's allowed to, could potentially fight Charles Leclerc for his first Ferrari podium, as that gap is closing. He's getting held up a little bit by Pierre Gasly. And then the other closest battle out on track is, of course, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen holding off the Red Bull driver right now, looking for a top 5 finish here after starting down in 20th after that horrendous mechanical failure yesterday that caused him to go into a violent spin into the first corner. We knew that he would be blockbuster today whenever Max starts from down in the grid. Who knows what he could have achieved today if he started further up. I think it would be much better opportunities for him in Shanghai, but we did see that Red Bull powertrain in the back of Hadjar's car go pop earlier on, so there is a reliability concern there, of course, for Red Bull, and definitely for McLaren as well, because they've had a very tricky weekend. As Hamilton is being told, keep pushing, doing well. Yeah, leave me to it, mate, thanks. Much more positive communication today from the engineer, or temporary engineer of Lewis Hamilton. It is the former race engineer of Kimi Räikkönen, if you're wondering. Will be temporary until Oscar Piastri's former race engineer, who is joining Ferrari in the summer, will be taking over. That is, I think, everyone's understanding. But even if he is temporary, it does seem a lot more positive from the outset, if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, that communication and relationship between him and his engineer than it ever was with Adami, who has moved on to new pastures within Ferrari still. So, 6 laps remaining, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have enjoyed this race. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Over 15,000 of you here in the stream right now. Hit that like and subscribe button. And, well, Pierre Gasly, is this an official stop for Pierre Gasly here? Or is this his transponder playing around again? I've been duped too many times by Pierre Gasly. The timing tower does show that he is still in P10, but I'm not entirely sure what is going on with Pierre Gasly's transponder, unless he has had an actual genuine issue out on track. No, there we go. He rejoins ahead of Esteban Ocon. Too many times. Fool me once. Shame on you. But I'm not being fooled 10 times today by Pierre Gasly. How is Lando still holding back Max? Just because it does seem to be quite tricky to still overtake. And I think probably because Max is because Max is on the hard and Lando's on the medium, the soft, it's that balance, it's that offset of Lando's got the pace advantage because he's on a softer compound tyre, but it's an older tyre. And Max, of course, it's the delta is balancing off because Max is, while he's on fresher tyres, they're the harder, slower, hard compound tyres. So if Max was on the mediums and was on 7-lap fresher mediums, then yes, I think Max would have got past Lando by now. But because he's on hards, fresher hards, it's not enough of an advantage that he's got over Norris on the softer medium compound. And, well, what a lap time that is by Lando Norris, by the way. A 22.3. Maybe that's why Lando's just turned on the afterburners. What a lap that was from Lando Norris. But has he maybe used too much of his battery? I'm not entirely sure, because Max Verstappen is now 1.4 seconds behind Lando Norris and losing a bit of time here. So his tyres clearly and evidently starting to hurt. But that is a tremendous time from Lando Norris. a 22.358, and that has definitely relieved some pressure with us approaching the closing stages of this race, guys, with 4 laps remaining. We are on lap 55 of 58. George Russell leads from Kimi Antonelli by 4.4 seconds, and they have and will be able to take these tyres to 46 laps. I maybe jinxed myself earlier on saying that these tyres won't be able to go as many laps as they have done, but I guess really, have Mercedes had to push as much as they could have done? Probably not, because you can see Ferrari, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton starting. Their pace is it's been good, but not as not the strategy. Unfortunately, they missed an opportunity with the VSC. Of course, some mistimed VSCs as well, which was poor for them. They could have taken advantage, but that 5-second advantage under the VSC gained Mercedes track position, and that's going to be key this year, clearly, for Mercedes. He's maintaining that track position, because we saw it does bode well for this season. While they may have ominous pace over a single lap in qualifying, we can always rely, it seems, at this stage of the season on the Ferrari race starts, as we saw. Because it was dramatic, that race start. Also, it's not that easy to overtake, even with a car advantage like you have in the Mercedes. Mercedes need clean air, similar to how McLaren needed clean air last year as well. So there is a definite weakness in that Mercedes. Ferrari have good race pace as well. They do indeed. And I'm looking at the data right now with 3 laps remaining as well. Something that bodes well if you are a Lewis Hamilton fan and you're interested in the battle between Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, and you want to know whether this will be a positive season for Lewis Hamilton, just look at this last stint. Look at this last stint when the tyres are starting to come to the end of their life. Look at the gap closing between Hamilton and Leclerc. This is Lewis Hamilton's remit. The looking after tyres. Well, Charles Leclerc, of course, is very good on tyres as well. He also has a strength there. Lewis Hamilton is definitely one of the best for tyre management, and I think we are seeing that right now in the closing stages of this race, with him closing down that gap quite dramatically on Charles Leclerc. Fastest lap for him yesterday, last lap, sorry, a 22.423, with Charles Leclerc at 22.8. So could Lewis Hamilton maybe pip Charles Leclerc for a podium at the end here? We will see. I'm not entirely sure. That'd be very spicy if Lewis does do that. Of course, Lewis still yet to score an official podium in a full race weekend. Of course, he did get that sprint race win last year, but it doesn't necessarily count. So be interested to see. But it bodes well for Ferrari at the start of this season. George Russell is on the penultimate lap of this race. He leads by 4.5 seconds from Kimi Antonelli. 44 laps apiece on the hard compound tyre for them. It will be 45, 46 when they eventually end. It's insane to think that only the top 7 haven't been lapped yet. That is true. Ollie Bearman is probably going to be lapped. He'll have a blue flag waved very shortly. So the top 7, yeah, so basically the midfield. All of the midfield have been lapped, basically, haven't they? Which is what we expected. We expected there would be a gulf in performance from the top 4 teams, as we saw through testing, to the midfield. And that's what we've seen here. As look at that gap from Max Verstappen to George Russell. 54 seconds, nearly a minute gap to George Russell and Max Verstappen. Leclerc, 15 seconds. Hamilton, 17 seconds. Of course, they gained a 5-second advantage under the VSC. And I think there's a miss. There needs to be a discussion already about the strategy decision of Ferrari, because they should have at least split the strategy. Seems like Lewis is not going to have the pace to be able to get past Charles Leclerc, as we are rounding the penultimate corner here of the penultimate lap for the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park. I think we all did approach this race with caution. Many of us had low expectations, the lowest they've probably ever been in recent memory for Formula One, as we are now on the final lap of the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park in Melbourne. George Russell, lap 58 of 58. He started on pole position, but it's been anything but easy for Mercedes. And, well, could it have been much, much harder? I do think it could have been. They pitted well under the VSC, and Ferrari did not respond as well. Lewis Hamilton is within 1 second of Charles Leclerc on this final lap. Could we maybe see an overtake here on Charles Leclerc for the podium position on the final lap? I'm sure Lewis Hamilton will want to go for it. We'll keep an eye out on it as Arvid Lindblad. There's a few battles happening out on track here in the final lap as Arvid Lindblad is under pressure from Gabriel Bortoleto and looking to hold on to P8. Will he be able to hold on to it? Of course, when George Russell crosses this line, they are a lap down. They will not have another lap of racing as Antonelli has been able to close down the gap on George Russell here. Good pace in the second half of this race for Kimi Antonelli. That is for sure. Of course, George Russell, his pace out up front. He just needed to manage the gap. But Lewis Hamilton probably not going to have an opportunity on Charles Leclerc unless it's late braking into turn 11, but has definitely had a much better second stint than that of his teammates. Charles Leclerc bodes well for this season, but George Russell rounds the last corner. It's been anything but easy and wins the opening Grand Prix of 2026. Kimi Antonelli comes across the line in P2. It's a 1-2 for Mercedes, but it's been anything but easy for them. Arguably, maybe there's a question of gifted as Lewis Hamilton ends up on the rear wing of Charles Leclerc, who gets that podium position. Lewis Hamilton, that elusive first podium for Ferrari, is still yet to be achieved, but a much and very positive race for Ferrari as Lando Norris has been able to hold off Max Verstappen with only a couple of corners remaining, but we do have the remainder of the field completing this race as we watch Lando Norris round the last corner for the Australian Grand Prix. The sole McLaren out there after the torment of the Australian fans watching Oscar Piastri go off on the recon lap on his way round to the grid. As Lando Norris comes across in P5, Max Verstappen, still a great result for him in P6. There we go. That is it. Fireworks for the first race of this season. I think that's been a very, very positive opening race of this season. Behrman comes along across the line in P7. Arvid Lindblad in P8. Great result and start to the season for them, as well as Gabriel Bortoleto in as well, scoring the first point for Audi in P9. Gasly up 4 places and into P10. Rip my fantasy team as Esteban Ocon just finishes outside of the points in P11. Albon in P12. Lawson in 13th. Colapinto in 14th, Sainz 15th, Perez 16th, Stroll 17th, Alonso is a retiree at 18th, Bottas 19th, Hadjar 20th, Piastri 21st, and Nico Hulkenberg in 22nd. That has been your Australian Grand Prix today. That has been this watch along brought to you by myself and sponsored by NordVPN. You can get a huge discount from them and 4 months free. 30-day money-back guarantee as well. Link is in the description and in the pin chat. Be sure to use my code and link. Thank you to them. First of many. But, interesting turn of events here today, guys. Interesting turn of events. What do you think? What do you think? I think that was a very positive race. I think that was a very positive race. I don't know about you. It could be a season where qualifying is not a good viewing experience at all, but the races very much are so. That's what I think. Let's have a poll. Who is your driver of the day? Who is your driver of the day? Stroll, driver of the day. I mean, fair play. He finished the race. 12 laps down, but 15 laps down, but he finished the race. More laps than anyone thought they would be. Driver of the day. Should we say George Russell? I think we should say Verstappen. Lindblad. And who else? Any of the Ferrari drivers? I'm not sure any of the Ferrari drivers. Solid. Let's do Stroll. Oh, Bortoleto. We could say Bortoleto, actually. Do you know what? We're going to say Bortoleto. I was going to put a fun one in, but I think Bortoleto. I think Behrman. Actually, do you know what? I think Behrman. I mean, up 5 places. I think the Ferrari drivers, yeah, they had a good race, but I don't think any of them are driver of the day. Piastri. Piastri. That's just rude. Who is your driver of the day? Of course, 60, understandably. There's lots of Max Verstappen fans. Can I get a thank you, by the way, guys? Can I get a thank you from Max Verstappen fans? And you're probably thinking, what? Why? Why do I deserve a thank you? I decided not to wear my Red Bull merch today. You're welcome. I'm sorry I didn't wear the Mercedes shirt, but... Honestly, I think Hamilton's in there for driver of the day. I think he could be in the question, but I don't think he would get driver of the day. That's why I haven't voted for him. I mean, Russell, because maybe it's the first race, the pressure of winning the first race and converting it in the manner that he did. But Hamilton, lots to be positive about if you're a Hamilton fan for sure. That last stint is peak Lewis Hamilton, by the way. Managing the tyres. I think this is going to be a very good season, and I think it's going to be a very good season for Lewis Hamilton. I think if you are a fan of Lewis Hamilton, which I am, he's the only driver on the grid that I'm an active fan of. I've been watching him since I was a kid. So I think that is like, okay, if Ferrari can sort out their strategy, I think there is an opportunity here for both Ferraris and Lewis Hamilton in particular to do very well, as well as Charles Leclerc. But if you're Charles Leclerc, I would be a little bit concerned about that tyre management in the last phase. Only 3-lap older tyres as well, so not a massive trade-off in pace. And unless Leclerc was managing an issue, I don't know, it could be that as well. So there's many things and information that we don't know. So I think the championship is going to be closer than we think. Yes. So what I've taken, my biggest takeaway from this race, and Shepard, I totally agree. Ferrari could have been in with a chance if the strategy was better. My biggest takeaway from this race is Ferrari have brilliant race starts. They have a clear advantage. So if they start on the second row even, as we saw Charles Leclerc do, they're going to lead pretty much down into turn 1. George Russell, literally, I've never seen a worse start. I'm surprised he was able to hold on to second place down into turn 1 because he spun up those rears massively. Secondly, it's not easy for George Russell to overtake and Kimi Antonelli to overtake. By the way, little bit of needle there from George Russell and Charles Leclerc changing out of their overalls. Bit of needle. Bit of spice. George Russell having a word with Charles Leclerc, not looking happy about his moving under braking, which he was relieved of, by the way, from the stewards. I'm yet to see a replay of it, so I need to see if it was naughty by Charles. But maybe of things to come this year. Maybe a sign of things to come this year. But George Russell and Antonelli, we saw trading of positions between him and Charles Leclerc and not able to pull away. Not able to pull away. So I think the Mercedes, at least on high fuel, it'll be interesting to see at the end of the race, but I think definitely from what we saw from the race pace on those hards having to do the one stop, I think the races are going to be very different. I think Ferrari definitely have a pace advantage. And this is also, as well, bearing in mind, this is a track which is low energy recovery, one of the worst tracks on the calendar for energy recovery. So that advantage that Mercedes have of their battery efficiency and their power advantage is going to be even better here than it is at other tracks, because that is them making use of that advantage. So I think there's lots to be positive about today. Lots to be positive about. Ferrari have a good package. Indeed, they very much do. I think I am, if you're an F1, obviously you're an F1 fan because you're tuning in right now, but I think you should be, I'd be interested to see what everyone's opinions are after this race, but I think everyone should be a lot happier after seeing the racing product. I'm happy to have that trade-off of qualifying being poor, okay, whatever, but if the racing product is good, that's what it's all about. Of course, the drivers, we still overall want changes with these regulations. We want the best of both worlds. We want qualifying to be balls to the wall, drivers on the limit, cars not slowing down at the end of straights and stuff. But if the racing is going to be good, which we saw up and down the grid today, I'll happily take that trade-off for one season, at least. So, chat is faster than batteries, yeah. Did we gain 1,000 subs today? Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a great stream and great viewership considering how early it is in the morning for us. It's only just gone 5:30 here in the UK, or 25 to 6. So big thank you for everyone for tuning in to the earliest race of the season. Well, other than Vegas, which is later on in the year. And for us here in Europe, of course, for many of you across the world, it's a nice time for you. Taco, thank you for modding. And anyone, I think I saw some other mods as well. So thank you, guys. Arav, the Ferrari strategy is honestly trash, but the fact that Merck and Ferrari were 36 seconds ahead of everyone else shows that they will dominate. Well, at least we'll have two teams fighting. Max, we don't know. In fairness to Max and Red Bull, Hadjar didn't seem to have the pace at the start, for sure. I don't know if his engine was maybe already had those gremlins before. that engine went pop. But quite evidently, the top four were pulling away from Hadjar. Antonelli cleared Hadjar, and he started to pull away comfortably. But when it comes to Max Verstappen, maybe Red Bull are. I mean, it does seem to be that at least this weekend, Red Bull and the race pacer McLaren was subpar to Ferrari and Mercedes. So Mercedes clearly, evidently the team to beat, but Ferrari, lots to be positive about there, and a missed opportunity for them with that VSC. I don't know why they didn't split it. I said it literally in my predictions video. If you haven't seen it, I put Charles and Lewis third and fourth, exactly where they finish right now, because I have confidence in them and the car package, but I don't have confidence in the strategy department. And we literally have seen it in the first race, I believe. These tyres aren't going to fall off a cliff. That's evident here. The fact they were able to take those hard compound tyres 46 laps shows that the figurative cliff is not something that is going to happen. So track position is still key. And yes, this is a low abrasive circuit. Yes, this is a track that should always really be a one-stop. And that's what we saw today. And Ferrari stuck to plan A, but Mercedes actually made the right decision with the VSC. Real unfortunate timing, of course, for Ferrari with that second VSC coming out with Valtteri Bottas as they went around turn 13, basically just past the pit lane. And then, of course, they came around to the pit lane again, and it was closed because of where Bottas had done. So I'll give them some leeway there, but would they have ever pit under that? I'm still not confident that they would have done. So, but we'll see. But thank you, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that, by the way. Much appreciated. Cam Sports, thank you for such an awesome broadcast. Great for folks like me who simply can't shell out money for another T subscription. Well, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Racing is good, but the qualifying position is not an advantage anymore. It's how the driver starts. Yeah, but then to be fair, qualifying, at least we know that I'd much prefer that variability. No one wants to see that just because you qualify on pole position, but it's a guarantee that you're going to win the race. No one wants to see that. Like we did last year. I think 75% of the races last year, the driver that led into the first corner won the race. So while qualifying was a lot more exciting, the racing wasn't actually that good last year, really, when you think about it. Whereas this seems to be, at least from our single sample point of uno, whatever language one is, we have maybe a poor qualifying product, but a much better and higher racing product. 6 cars DNF, the regulations is bad. That's always going to be the case. I think how long have you been watching F1? Curious everyone who has been watching F1. Because, just put in the chat how many years you've been watching F1 for. I'm just curious to see the viewership. Pirelli Haas doing 46 laps. I dislike them. Ferrari 15 seconds behind Merc, which is the pit stop lost. Thanks for the commentary. Enjoy the race. Thank you, Lily. Yeah, and correct as well. By the way, I'm going to end the poll with who you think is driver of the day. Driver of the day is Max Verstappen. You've given it to. Personally, maybe I'm going to give it to Arvid Lindblad. I think Arvid Lindblad had a tremendous race today. I really do. Max Verstappen, of course, but you have to remember, one, it's Max, and two, he has a particular car advantage. But I think Arvid Lindblad's race today was unbelievable. I think he's my driver of the day. I may change my mind when I do my driver ratings, but right now, it's Arvid Lindblad. Second year, got hooked last year, 25 years, 1 year, 8 years, 14 years, over 25 years, 7 years consistent now, 4 years, 2 years. So a wide variety. But those of you have, and so those of you, the long-term viewers of F1, over 10 plus years, really, since before 2014, I would say, and even probably within the last, 8 years, not over, let's say 2014, 2016, but you've really been spoiled pretty much over the last 7 years. Sorry, TJ. I'm sorry, TJ, that I've reminded you to think about how long you've been watching F1. I apologise. I think what we've been spoilt for over the last 5, 6, 7 years is how good reliability has been. And reliability, a poor lack of reliability has always been an element of F1. And this has brought that back. So if you've started watching F1, let's say you've been starting it, let's say you got into F1 because of Drive to Survive, which is 7 years now, 8 years. The reliability has been, it's like very rare that someone DNFs, or at least like multiple cars DNF, right? Because of a reliability issue. This has always been the norm in F1. This is more of the norm. 5 cars retiring, especially at the start of a season. Maybe not towards the end of the season, because it gets better and the teams get a better understanding of the cars that they've got, and they improve those areas, as you'd expect them to do. But a start of a season, Australia, I have vivid memories of watching many a year of F1 starting in Australia, which it used to do, and always having multiple reliability issues, having multiple crashes and wheel-to-wheel accidents because the drivers are rusty, and yeah, that's how it's kind of always been. So we're into a brand new era of F1. I don't know if it's as exciting as it should be yet, but it's better than more beginnings of an era. Exactly, yeah. So I think, look, and as well, the pace of cars going, if you're someone who looks at lap time solely on whether you enjoy F1 or not, I would ask you to maybe just take a step back and just go, okay, well, why do you get enjoyment just out of a car going quickly? Is it just the qualifying experience that you enjoy? You don't like cars going wheel to wheel? Each to their own, of course, of how you get your enjoyment out of watching motorsport. But personally, I watch motorsport and F1 because I want the enjoyment of watching some of the best drivers in the world go wheel to wheel and battle it out for a meaningful championship. And I don't care if cars are a bit slower than their predecessors. And we've seen that when the cars do get quicker and quicker, the reason they get quicker and quicker is because the teams figure out how to create more outwash, which creates more dirty air and actually dilutes the racing product, the close racing. And qualifying becomes really entertaining, like we saw last year. And they set lap record after lap record, but it makes it super difficult to overtake. So I would much prefer it in this format. I'm very positive about today. By the way, Nelly, thank you for the £10. Much, much appreciated. Thank you very much. That'll be going to very good use for a nice beer maybe later on. A couple of beers. So thank you very much. I'm currently still on my energy drink at 5:30 in the morning, keeping me going. I watched Ferrari win the chariot race in the Colosseum during Caesars. But wow, Audi has a good package for the first season. Yep, just reliability for them. So yeah, I think that was a really enjoyable race. 175 points on the fantasy. Ooh, I didn't even get to check my fantasy yesterday. My fantasy was not working. So I can't cope from the lost opportunity if the pit lane was still open, then Ferrari goes 1-2. Yeah, I think that's... They should have at least... Lewis is right in what he said. They should have at least split the strategy, shouldn't they? They should have 100% split the strategy. I don't know why they didn't. They stuck to plan A. Especially when you see George Russell come in. I think they should have said, to Lewis, they should have said, do what George does. If George comes in, you pit. If George stays out, you stay out. I think that's what they should have done. Or they should have at least split it, because Kimi Antonelli was close behind them as well. Mercedes gambled and went for both of their drivers to pit under the VSC, and it gained them track position. Really, who knows if they would have... I'd be interested to know by Fred Vasseur if they would have pitted them under the second VSC. Real unfortunate timing. I mean, literally, you could not pick worse timing. They were coming round, literally going past the pit lane entry when they threw the VSC. Horrible timing for them. Maybe could have gambled, though. This is why I think they weren't deciding on pitting anyway, because you could see where Bottas was stopped. Bottas was basically stopped at the pit lane entry, but on the grass. So there was always going to be a VSC, because that's not safe. They could have gambled with one of their drivers to pit there, because the VSC was always going to be thrown. If that was Mercedes or Red Bull, I think if that's Red Bull, they would have gambled. They're definitely more riskier with those strategy decisions. I get, obviously, you don't want to give up track position, but you could have given up track position to at least one of your drivers to keep maintaining the pressure and get a potential cheap pit stop. And then, of course, as they made their way back round, they closed the pit lane because of where Bottas's car was to remove it. So real unfortunate, not able to make benefit and pit under that second VSC. So yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get a full safety car today. Thankfully, everyone who did retire either retired in the pit lane or before the race. Sorry, Oscar Piastri. And they were able to pull their cars to the side of the track in a nice escape road. So yeah, real shame, but a missed opportunity there. But positive as a fan moving forward into China, into Suzuka, into the following races, that I think Ferrari could have done something. Would they have won? I don't know. I'm not going to go as far to say that they could have won, but they could have made it a lot closer and challenged Mercedes for a lot longer in this race. So considering the supposed pace advantage that they had, or they have over a single lap at this circuit in particular, I don't think that advantage is going to be consistent across the season. Least of all, obviously because of development, but also because of different energy deployments, how it favours some are high recovery, some are not. I think that's we should be positive as the races go moving forward for this season. So. Cruz, you found a meme. Mercedes is like W11 in 2020, but next year Mercedes will be the Ferrari SF1000. Justice for all. Ferrari should have won the race. The overtaking by Mercedes doesn't look good. Only if the pit wall were better. Yeah, I mean, would they have won? I'm not going to go as far to say that they would have won, but I think it definitely would have been a lot closer, and it would have been... they would have challenged them. I mean, clearly, at least on high fuel, that Mercedes was struggling to get past Charles. Really struggling to get past. They have an advantage in clean air. I say they have an advantage in clean air. You can look at the lap times towards the end. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the racing package is pretty even. I really do. If roles were reversed and it was, like, say, Ferrari having to push when they did on the same age of tyre that Russell and Antonelli was on, I'd be intrigued to see the pace there. But I think race pace is definitely a lot closer. I think the strategy 100% was the defining factor today. Got to give credit to Mercedes because that has always been an area that they have been subpar on, even when they've been a massive dominant team. So they made the right calls today. They didn't just split the strategy. No, I say gamble. They brought both of their drivers in at the same time, and it worked out for them and secured them a 1-2. So, can I show the championship? I can indeed. Yes, we can have a look at our first championship order for 2026, and here we go. George Russell, 25 points for him. Antonelli, so it is only the top 10, even though we have 22 cars now, it is only the top 10 that still score points. I don't know. I feel like that should be changed to the top 11. I'm not just saying that because Esteban Ocon is in my fantasy team, and I would have loved for him to score a solitary point today. But I don't know. I feel like it's always been half the team, half of the field has scored points. Just keep it as that. You know, Mercedes 43 points in the constructors, Ferrari 27. We can see that Alpine has scored a point, Audi 2 points, Racing Bulls. I mean, we've just had 8 constructors there score a single point. Only Williams, Cadillac, and Aston Martin failed to score a point. It's going to be a tall order for Cadillac and Aston Martin to score points this year. I expect Williams to get better as the season goes on. They'll shed the weight. They're clearly overweight at the moment. Don't worry, I'm not fat shaming. It's just a matter of fact. They are overweight at the moment, which is going to cost them a considerable amount of time and performance. And they have the resource now to be able to develop. So, should they automatically close the pit lane in VSC? It's supposed to neutralise the race, not give an advantage. That's a fair question. That is a fair question, Multi. You could do. Yeah, you could do. I guess it provides another... I guess it's always been that case. It's been treated as a safety car. You get a cheaper pit stop. I don't mind it, to be honest with you. I really don't. I guess I wouldn't be upset if they did put that rule into place, though. I kind of I'm neither here or there with it. It's not something that, I wouldn't die on a hill on and say, no, it needs to be, pit lane needs to be open. But I also wouldn't be against it, so being closed. Can you show who will win the championship for the players? What the players' championship? What, you're talking about golf? What, the players' championship at Sawgrass? It used to be for many years 10, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1 with 26 cars on the grid. Did it was it? I feel like that's too little. I mean, I this is why I don't like the sprint races. One of my criticisms about the sprint races is that they only have the top 8 cars. Why do they only have the top 8 cars score points? Don't like that. So, yes, Harry, I think we will. I think we will. I think even Forest could stay up as well. I mean, if you look at the free fall, sorry, talking about just football for just 2 seconds. Spurs, definitely their players look like they've quit. It looks like they're already probably talking to other teams and admitting they're down. I think West Ham and Forest have got the grip between their teeth, and they'll pick up points between now and the end of the season. Where are Tottenham going to pick up points? But there we go. Sector times. Yeah, you can have a look at sector times. Not really too influential when it comes to the race, of course. Many varying factors. Everyone is running different fuel. Everyone is running a different race at a different time. You can see, I mean, Colapinto was quickest in the middle sector. Norris fastest in that last sector. So, Jarvis 10 gifted at the end. Thank you very much. Those of you who have been fortunate enough to receive a gifted there, give a thank you to Jarvis, as he does this at the end of kind of every single stream. So thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Jarvis, thank you, mate. Comments, yeah, thank you for the subs as well. I'll definitely see you next weekend. We have a sprint race next weekend. I will be doing some content in the week. So once this ends, I'm not in the stream just yet. I will be doing, at the end of every single race now, I will be doing a driver ratings video. I'd love to get you guys involved, but for the sake of time and to make sure that I personally do it, because it's something I want to do at the end of every single race, is straight after I end the stream, I'm going to go into my driver ratings and I'm going to post that as a separate video. By all means, let me have it. Let me know where you disagree. Give me your ratings in the comments below, of course. That's going to happen every single race weekend. I'm going to obviously do my preview for China as well. That'll be happening before every single race. And then we have in the week some light reading for you all. We have the new driving guidelines for this season. A good few changes, some not good changes. A lot more positive changes, though, for this season. You know, those pesky guidelines that the stewards sometimes did or didn't take into consideration when it came to their decision making last year. So they have been updated. We will decide whether it's for the better or not. I'll do a separate video on that. And of course, yeah, we'll be straight in, before we know it, we'll be straight into China. It'll be Friday again. We'll have sprint qualifying, one practice session next week. We know how that fared last year, didn't we, at China, with a certain disqualification for 2 Ferrari drivers. And I think Pierre Gasly also got disqualified last year for blank wear as well. So sprint races, less setup time, less time to get the machine learning for the battery deployment, which we saw cause havoc yesterday in qualifying. It is going to be an interesting weekend, with it only being the second race weekend of these regulations and already a sprint race. So, yeah. The straight will drain the batteries. How many times? Let's guess now. How many times are they going to shift down that back straight in China? I mean, that is going to be a hard watch. Not going to lie. That is going to be a hard watch. Is there a clip of Charles moving under braking yet? I haven't seen it yet. No. Don't want to see the top drivers retire due to no one wants to see it, but it's always been an element. I mean, in the day, F1 is an engineering game, so. 2 overtakes on 1 straight, yeah. But I just want to reiterate that the product, I said the product today, like, you know, the racing product. So the racing, that's what we care about really as F1 fans, as race fans. What we saw today, and this is why I was still holding back my reservations for today, was we still are yet to see these guys go properly wheel to wheel. They're racing drivers at the end of the day. They want to be fighting for positions. They want to score points. And when that is on the line, when podium positions are on the line, when points are on the line, when the race win is on the line, we are going to see these guys completely forget about how much they dislike the cars. They're going to go racing. And we saw that today. And another point I made is that while, of course, we don't like the clipping, we don't like the super clipping, we don't like the fact that it's 50% in battery, 50% power unit. Regardless of all that, everyone has the same issue. Okay, yes, some are dealing with it better than others, i.e. Mercedes over a single lap. But when it comes to a race, yes, okay, visually it's not good to see these cars slowing down once we see the super clipping at the end of straights and down into like the full throttle of turn 9. But it is the same for everyone. And when that comes to racing, that the guy behind still has a slipstream. Still, physics are still in play. Still has a slipstream of the car ahead. Some are going to be slightly better at it than others with, obviously, their energy. And when it comes to the race, we'll see them go racing like we did today. So, racing is quality, but riding is horrible. Hope they found a solution. Red Bull Ford. Yeah, I mean, look, it's the first race of the season. There's always going to be some gremlins, like we saw throughout the duration of this weekend. So, that will be fixed as the season goes on. But, yeah. Lindblad taking Lawson to school. Lawson should not get sacked. So I am going to give a bit of context for Lawson, if you are wondering what happened to him today. And of course, it is driver dependent, because Lindblad coped with it well and Lawson didn't. But Lawson's whole race today hinged on his race start. Simple as. Yes, I'm not completely relieving Lawson of blame here. He should have done a better race start because his teammate was able to do a decent race start in his first ever race start in F1. So there's no, you can't relieve him of fault there. But Lawson's whole race just went wrong because of like the race start. Yeah, he didn't get his race start right and he fell to the back of the field. So Lawson stalled. Yeah, he qualified ahead of his teammate Minute, but qualifying is only one element of the weekend. It doesn't matter if you have a good qualifying. If you can't convert it to points, it doesn't matter. And this is coming from I like Lawson. Am I a fan of Lawson? I mean, I'm getting there. I like Lawson a lot and I want him to do well. But if he stalled, unless it was a mechanical issue with the race start, him stalling the car is his fault. Because you could say, okay, well, if Lindblad also had an equally poor start, then yeah, maybe it's the car. The car itself has poor race starts. But Lawson had that poor race start and his teammate didn't. His teammate found himself up in P4 at the end of the first lap. So, in his first race of the season. So, when you compare it like that, Lawson's whole race was due to the poor race start. And then, yeah, it's very difficult to recover from then on. Ferrari killed the race with the strategy irons, but great fight at the front. Lewis shouldn't trust them. It's going to be interesting to see. It could be the defining factor because I think until I hear Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton's post-race interviews, but I think, as I said before, if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, him closing down the gap on Charles there at the end, yes, they got 3 laps. Lewis has got 3 lap fresher hards, but that's down to tyre management. That's the way that these cars require to be driven. We know that these cars, the drivers through the corners, are going to have to end up. There's more that the driver has to do, which is a real shame with the whole power unit issue that we've got at the moment because the aero regs are in a real good place right now, and it's kind of it's a bit difficult, isn't it? Because if we had the engines from last year in this year's cars, it's probably a good package. Yes, the only problem is the cars would be slightly heavier, but even so, like the aero package is good, and Lewis Hamilton is definitely confident coming away from this weekend. Yes, he couldn't get into the podium position there, but his teammate started up ahead of him, and Lewis, obviously, they equally had kind of bad battery deployment yesterday. If that was sorted, then maybe it could have been a different story for Lewis and both Charles as well. It could have been closer to the Mercedes boys. But yeah, if you're Lewis Hamilton there and a Lewis Hamilton fan in particular, I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, and I'm looking at that going, that's a positive start for this season for Lewis. So I don't think the Ferrari strategy was too bad. The Merc tyres just not fall off. Yeah, but I think if this is the thing, though, Trev, is that the tyres have never fallen off at Australia before. They never have. I said at the start in relation to race strategy, it was always going to be a one-stop here unless there was like shenanigans with safety cars. I just didn't see it being a two-stop. Some drivers did do two stops, and you saw obviously the bottom half of the field, but a lot of them did one stops. And I think if you're sitting there expecting tyres to fall off of a cliff, that just hasn't been a factor in Pirelli tyres for probably a good 5-6 years now. And to expect it to happen at a circuit where it's never happened, and it's a circuit that's been synonymous with a one-stop and with being able to take hard tyres a very long way, I think to bank on Mercedes being able to for their tyres to fall off of a cliff would be the wrong assumption. And also, they have a lot more data available at their disposal in the garage, all the Ferrari engineers and that, than what we do here from this end, watching it virtually and whatever. So, and from our sofas. So, I just think it was a fundamentally wrong decision, at minimum, to not split the strategy, as Lewis said. And it just seemed like they just gave the track position to Mercedes because Mercedes seemed to be quick in clean air. So, yeah, and they gained a 5-second advantage over them. Anti-Alex comments a bit sparse today. Good to see. Yeah, we'll see it, Aaron. I mean, we'll still see it, of course, but very, very positive. The post-race interview is going to be all sunshine and flowers. Only the Ferrari PR team works a lot more than their pit wall. Well, to be fair, Fred Vasseur is quite an honest team principal, I feel. He does come out and he does say what is right or wrong when it comes to things that have gone wrong. So I'm waiting to see. Hang on. Oh, hang on. So George, interestingly, being interviewed by Sky now, went, I thought we were going to have the pace to easily cruise by, and it was more challenging than I thought. Bodes well for this season. Thanks, Glenn. Much appreciated, mate. Winner's Garage is kind of cool. Yeah, it is in Australia, isn't it? It's not too bad. Lewis should start looking at retirement? No. Are you saying that about Fernando Alonso as well? If Fernando Alonso finished as high as he did. So. Oh my goodness. Right. This is a race. This is a race start, by the way. This is the race start from Max's perspective. Watch that. Watch that. That's the race start from Max's perspective. This is also Oscar's crash earlier on, if you haven't seen it, from, I don't know if it's region locked. So a couple of links there for you to check before the race began. And then this was the race start. Look at George's race start, by the way. Look at George's race start and those Ferrari race starts. Unbelievable. Mate, I'll tell you what, the race start footage, for Carlos Sainz's race start, oh my God. This footage is really good. But also crazy. I'm all about the race starts. Who won the race today? George Russell. George Russell. That was an enjoyable GP. Good to see Hamilton. I know. Who would have thunk it, eh? After yesterday, with George Russell finishing 8 tenths ahead. Finishing 8 tenths ahead of the next non-Mercedes car, which was Isaac Hadjar in P3, and 9 tenths ahead of Lewis, and about similar to Charles as well. But it would have been a close race today. The race starts are a clear advantage, and if Ferrari can get out up front, and this is just the start of the season where Mercedes have a clear power advantage at this particular type of circuit. Hang on, listen to Lewis Radio. Just listen to Lewis Radio. Very positive from Lewis. He's got a smile. He's got a smile on his face in the press pen as well. So positive Lewis Hamilton. It's very, very different to last season, of course. Technical section next week should suit Ferrari next week. Yeah, it could be a different circuit. I think China is a bit better with energy recovery as well. A lot more hard braking points. They just asked him about the strategy, and Lewis did say, I don't know. I need to go have a look. So he's being very positive about. He said it was a really fun race, and he says a couple more laps, and I would have had Charles as well. But lots of positives to take from today. A smile on Lewis Hamilton's face. We haven't seen that for some time. Is it likely that Mert will dominate this year? No, not from what we've seen today. No, I think qualifying maybe. So what we saw today, sorry, going back to it. So who would have thought that this race, Australia, I love Australia. I think it's a great location for a first race of the year. And there is something, while obviously getting up early in the morning, it does hurt. There is something that is like traditional about that, but I do like it. But the racing has always been a lot has been left to be desired at Australia. It's never been a track that we have had good racing at. More so, it's dramatic because of the drivers are rusty. There's always an incident on the first lap, or there's reliability issues and so forth, because it's always the first race of the season. But what we saw today was good racing and a good racing product, and something that should lift the shoulders and lift the spirits of F1 fans. But yes, while qualifying may be something that is going to be a difficult watch this year, the racing should be better. And while at this particular circuit, which was a low recovery regeneration circuit for the battery, so a lot of high throttle inputs, you're on full throttle for a long time, so there's not a lot of braking zones. Obviously, that's where the only way to really recover is like lift and coast and so forth. We saw that really Mercedes, as George Russell said, should have gone off into the distance with the advantage that they had over their efficiency in recovering the battery over the rest of the field, hence the 8 tenths advantage in quali. But in the race, that wasn't the case. And I do think the strategy today was something that really should have made this race a lot closer, because Ferrari evidently have as good of a race package as Mercedes, and we didn't really get to see the full pace of the Ferrari, I guess, on like pushing. I mean, they were at the end. Maybe Mercedes is still that top team, but definitely it's not easy for them to overtake the Ferraris. And if Ferrari can get out up front at the race start, which are going to be chaotic, as you've just seen from the links I've sent, then yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot closer right now at the start of this season than we thought it was. So I'd be a lot more positive. And of course, I still think the season's going to be like that. I still think Red Bull are going to make improvements. McLaren are going to make improvements. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. So what happened with Lando? Watching the race start. Oh, I tell you what, by the way, while Ferrari had a very good start, tell you who also equally has nailed their starts? McLaren. I know we only had Lando Norris on the grid. Lando had as equally as a good start as Lewis Hamilton did. And he ended up getting boxed in. And Lewis just went down the outside and said, thank you very much. So McLaren have sorted out their race starts, it seems. Mercedes, not so much, though. Mercedes, very much spinning their wheels off at the start, and George lucky to still be P2 when he came out of turn 1. So, but what a start to the race, wasn't it? If they're the teams that can get to the top end gear 7th right without stalling, I think it will be better overtaking. Well, it's actually 8 gears. Can't teams do some upgrades on the engine after the season has started? No, I don't know with the engine regulations. I'm not sure they can. Not sure they can. They have to get special dispensation from the FIA, I believe. So, Red Bull comeback. Yeah, I mean, look, Max Verstappen yesterday in qualifying, I think he would have got P3 comfortably. The race pace, difficult to tell from Max today if he has a car that could have fought with the Ferraris and Mercedes because of where he started. Obviously, he got stuck behind Norris eventually at the end, but the difference there is that Norris had the softer tyre and it was offset with Verstappen being on a younger tyre but a harder compound tyre. So, look, still a great result for Max. Damage limitation as he always does. And we've seen, just like last year, if Max is there or thereabouts, he'll be there to capitalise on it. And it's all about... Sports is not necessarily always about your best. It's about how good are your bad days. And for Max Verstappen, his bad days are still very good days, and he picks up all important points. So that's what the greats do. Lewis Racecraft was back to his best with a double overtake. Yeah, it was good to see. I mean, it's amazing what confidence can do, eh? Where is Toyota Alexis? Toyota is with Haas, who scored a good haul of points today with Esteban Ocon in P7. 6 points for him. So, yeah, good. Can't wait for Cadillac to bring it up a notch. Yeah, he's hoping. McLaren need to understand the Merc engine and they can compete with Merc. Yeah, and I think they will. And the thing is with McLaren, I think write them off at your own peril. Similarly, Norris still scored P5 there. Yes, he finished 51 seconds off the lead, but I mean, that was a terrible weekend for Norris and McLaren. Battery deployment issues all weekend. Gearbox issue on the Friday. Front wing damage yesterday in Q3. I mean, Norris said he's had limited lap time here this weekend. He's still trying to get his head around the car and how it performs. Says he's been spending more time looking at his steering wheel than he has actually at the racetrack. So considering that, a P5 for him is a decent result. It's not like he's finished 8th, 9th, or outside the points, you know. So, was the flipping rear wing in use? It wasn't, David. No. So I think with the rear wing, right? I think we will still see it. I think the new rear wing, the flipping rear wing, the upside down rear wing that we saw for a brief period of time in Bahrain, will be brought out at circuits maybe like China. At circuits where there are long straights, where there's more time for that rear wing to open and close, basically. Rear wing for China? I think so. So I think what they'll do here, while obviously you're on full throttle for a long period of the lap here, there's only really turn 8 to turn 9 that you use the rear wing. And of course, the change of direction is a key factor here as well, is that it's not a hard braking zone down into turn 9. There's no hard braking zones, really. So having that rear wing which operates as effectively like for a brief second as an air brake is not beneficial to you. So where we get long straights into a hard braking zone, like China, like we will at like Baku, Monza, etc., I think that's where we'll see it, because that's where the benefit of that rear wing is. When it's into circuits where there is a big change of direction, like Suzuka into the first corner, like here into turn 9 and turn 10, where you've got those straight line modes, that air brake is not going to, that rear wing is at Vegas as well, that's not going to be, you're not going to get the benefit of that rear wing. So I think we'll use it. Giving my bias away there as a Lewis Hamilton fan, I think Ferrari will use it as a track specific, being track specific basically. So, and will every team make one? I don't know. If it works, I think it was seen for such a short period of time in Bahrain. People were intrigued by it, but I think the word on the street was, or a word in the paddock, from some reports I saw, was that they didn't necessarily see the benefits of it. Any more other engineers of other teams, at least in that short period of time. If it happens, if they see it in China and they're like, "Oh my god, like this is unreal," and there's a clear performance advantage that they gain under braking from it and under acceleration, then the teams will probably look to create their own one for sure. But we only saw it for 5 laps in Bahrain, so yeah. It possibly after 4 races mentioned by Ted yesterday. Maybe. I suspect we could see it in China because of how long that back straight is and the hard braking zone. It could be beneficial there. So Monza will work. So yeah, and that also there's a larger rear slot gap as well. So the gap that, because there's no middle pylon where the actuator is, the slot gap in itself is clear. It's larger, so the air traveling through it is larger than what obviously the rear wing that they used here this weekend, or the standard Ferrari rear wing. So that will give them more top speed, and of course having a smaller turbo and obviously with the clip-in and so forth, that could help them close the gap on Mercedes potentially in the power zones or certain circuits at this stage of the season anyway. And then it also obviously has that stability when it goes from obviously the transition of it closing into braking from active aero disengaging. It gives more rear stability on the car, which allows for later braking, which obviously suits Lewis Hamilton, Charles as well, and it gives them more confidence into the corners. Ferrari not winning the World Driver Championship with that pit wall. I mean, I would be concerned about their decision making today for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a topic of conversation. We need to have that conversation, but we'll see. Still early days. I'm intrigued to hear their reasoning on the strategy. Lewis said he's not going to comment on it right now. He needs to go back and speak to the team, but he seemed very positive. So, will Colapinto make it a whole year? He will, if the money keeps coming. Yeah. However, with Colapinto, I don't know what happened, but he got Tinlan. We don't talk politics here. Go do that somewhere else. Lost my train of thought now. Colapinto, he did have a race start infringement before the race even started. So I don't know what happened there. It wasn't on the actual race start itself. So he already had a stop-go before the race began, I think. Or it was like nailed on. So I don't know what happened to him. Need to find out exactly what did there. And that hampered his opportunity today. Could he have fared better? Yes, probably. Don't know where he would have finished, though. But it's a long season ahead. But yeah, it's an important year for Colapinto because, yes, he does bring a lot of money and a lot of financial support behind him. That will keep him in the team probably longer than necessary, just from like poor performance, let's say, than anyone else, than say a normal person, normal driver under normal circumstances. But yeah, Alex Dunn is in the wings. If they get sold, Alpine, which I believe they are still up for sale and they're still trying to find an active buyer. If they get sold and there's new ownership that comes in, then yes, they may look to move Colapinto on if his performances aren't bad, because they may just say, well, we don't need the finances. Sorry, off you go. But he does have a 5-year contract as well, Colapinto. So paying Colapinto out of his contract could be very worrisome, bothersome for new owners that come in. So he would probably still remain a driver, but maybe move down to reserve driver or something, if something like that happened. But it's still only the first race of the season. Don't know what happened with that penalty at the start. Need to look into it, and it could have been something that was outside of his control. If it wasn't outside of his control and it was duly on him, then yeah, I mean, he has to take criticism for that. But Alex Dunn is definitely one to watch now. He is their reserve driver. Honda may need Yuki for good PR. No one has a better sponsor than Stroll. Yeah, that's true. What do I think about Ferrari's pace, agent? They looked close to Mercedes and very positive. I think it was pretty neck and neck. Maybe Mercedes edged it in their overall pace, I think. I would actually say towards the end of the race, Lewis Hamilton was the quicker driver. I would say Lewis Hamilton had the quicker race pace today. It would be interesting to see him out up front and the positions switched instead of Charles. But I think it was either neck and neck or Mercedes had the slight edge because of clean air. But in dirty air, it was anyone's game. It looked pretty even still, didn't it, between them? And it was really enjoyable to watch. And more of that this season, please. Teams are going to have to get their cars together, or this gap at the top will be worse. China is going to be an embarrassment if they don't get their cars together. I mean, look, it's probably going to be more of the same next week. I don't think there'll be too many development progressions in development in China. That's not normally where you see updates, especially with it only being a week between races and it being on the other side of the world compared to where their factories are back in the UK. So it will be the same cars that we saw here this week in China, unless something, yes, does get shipped over from the factory. It's not out of the realms of possibility, but I'll be very you probably won't see a dramatic change already at this stage of the season, but what we will see is probably Mercedes still on top, but it could be closer because it's a different type of circuit. The energy recovery at China is a lot higher, so that advantage that Russell and Antonelli had with their power and then being more efficient with their battery is going to be reduced somewhat. I still expect them to probably get on pole because they clearly have an advantage over a single lap, but China's a completely different circuit than what it is here at Australia in Albert Park, so it's going to change from circuit to circuit at this stage of the season. But development is going to be key. Just because Red Bull and McLaren weren't at the races here in the first race doesn't mean that they won't make improvements over the course of this season, and maybe in a few races' time they're the ones challenging for the race win. So I think it's going to be that sort of season. Just because you're quick at the start doesn't mean you're going to be quick in the middle part of the year and come the end of the year. If George is not the World Drivers' Championship, then Max to Merck is confirmed. It depends how much improvement Red Bull make over the course of the year. If Red Bull are way off the pace, then yes, I think a move to Merck may still be on the cards. If Russell obviously doesn't convert the championship. If Red Bull are there or thereabouts with the pace and there's lots of positives to take into next season, then Max will stay. That's my opinion anyway. With the small turbo, as the race goes on, less fuel and top speed goes up, will be slower. So the top speed, yeah, so top speed differential should be less. So it should be more widening because the smaller turbo. But a smaller turbo can be offset by, like, obviously that rear wing, supposedly. Not by much. I'm not sure how efficient it is, that rear wing, in offsetting the power loss of a smaller turbo compared to that of Mercedes. But I believe that's probably one of the purposes of that flip-flap rear wing with the larger slot gap that it has, because they'll clearly be picking up more kph because of that. But a smaller turbo has its advantages elsewhere. And yes, George is indeed, Aaron, confirmed on his second battery already. They're only allowed 2 batteries per year, by the way. And George is already on his second battery. So that means there will be, undoubtedly, a 10-place grid penalty coming George's way with a second. Because there's no way that one battery is going to last 24 race weekends. No way. So, second battery already, yeah. If Lawson loses to Lindblad, is it over for him at Red Bull if Solov has a strong F2 season? Potentially, yes. It depends how poorly he loses to Lindblad. I mean, if he has an overall good season, if both of them have overall real good seasons, and it's like only a few points differ in both of them, then I think they'll probably both be retained. But if Lawson doesn't have a good season this year, and yes, Nikola Solov has obviously a very good season in F2, then I could see that move being made for sure. Next race, I think we could see the flip-flap rear wing next race. I think it should be used next race, so we'll see. The start advantage is crazy. It is really good, yeah. So, but brilliant race from Arvid Lindblad. Oscar Piastri, though. We need to talk Oscar Piastri. My. Not seen an interview from him yet. He's probably still crying back in his driver's room. Because, I mean, we all thought that Hadjar's crashing out on the formation lap last year was a low point. But I think that is a massive low point. I don't know if it was driver error or if something mechanical has gone on there, but wow, man. I mean, not even to make the start of the race. He was literally the first driver out on track as well on that outlap to make his way round to the grid. That McLaren is cursed. It's the Aussie curse. It's the Aussie curse. Oh, Oscar did do an interview, did he, David? Power spike, driver error, cold tyres. Yeah, I mean, in fairness to him, it's a combination of all the three. Combination of all three. Mate, Carlos Sainz and that Williams had such a great start compared to Max Verstappen. Watching that onboard of Max Verstappen again on the race start, you really see how poor of a start Liam Lawson had. I don't know if it was... Oh my God, what a move, Max, round the outside. So even though we've got this clipping and stuff, there's the overtaking is really good. I mean, I didn't pay too much attention to what was actually happening on the TV coverage, but it didn't seem like as well there were like arbitrary overtakes, if you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't like, oh, it's yo-yoing. They were just switching positions because of like battery deployment and stuff. Like one using up all their battery one lap, and then obviously it being offset the next lap. It seemed like whenever there were overtakes being made, they were valid overtakes because they'd positioned their car better. Yes, the battery deployment is probably better, but they'd got into the slipstream of the other car behind, and it seemed... I was, pretty positive about that. Aston unretired the car, knew he's got a new strategy. He had a power spike at the rear. Yes, no, it did. I presumed it was that. He did go onto the curb a bit too much, though, so he could have avoided the curb. If he didn't go on the curb, Oscar, would he have been able to control that car? Potentially. But I am putting more blame on, yes, the power spike, as we've seen from these cars. Saw Lewis, reiterate it again yesterday, we saw Lewis Hamilton, that battery with the machine learning and it being kind of not in their control. The battery spiked and deployed 100% yesterday in qualifying, and he did very well in exactly the same corner to control the car. And also, we saw Perez on Friday practice have to go into a spin there as well with the same thing happening at the very same corner. So it was clearly a fault in many cars this week, and Oscar received it at the worst possible time. So yeah, it's difficult to contend with, yeah. But the issue is as well, unfortunately for Oscar, is that power spike happened at exactly the moment he's coming off the curb. So he comes off the curb, and when you see the face on the shot, he comes off of the curb, and you can see the car isn't settled. And because the car's not settled and it's bouncing, he's starting to apply the throttle. There isn't full traction. There isn't full contact with the tyre to the track surface. And that means that the rear is going to go round on itself. If he wasn't on that curb and the car wasn't unsettled, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but it's more likely that he would have got control of that car. But it was still a violent surge of power and sent his car into a spin. But yeah, just these cars, man, we saw it this week. So, and Keto, you having a fight with Nightbot? But yeah, guys, that is it for this stream. By the way, we have been live for 3.5 hours. What a race. What a race. We'll have a rundown of the grid one last time. I'm super positive about that. I hope you guys are too. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli round off the top row. George Russell first, Antonelli second. But it was not easy. It was not easy. And I think it should have been so much more closer between the Ferraris and that of the two Mercedes. Charles Leclerc in P3 with Hamilton in P4. Hamilton said, if you have one more lap, 2 more laps, you could have caught Charles Leclerc. Definitely had the pace advantage in that second stint. Lots to be positive about for Lewis Hamilton fans and Charles Leclerc fans as well, for sure. He could have potentially won this race today, or at least challenged George Russell for longer and split the two Mercedes if it wasn't maybe for a delayed strategy decision for Ferrari not to bring them in on the VSC. Still would like to know what the decision making was around that. Lando Norris in P5. Look, that's as best it possibly could have been this weekend for Lando Norris, and he will take that considering the struggles he has had over the course of this weekend. Not a lot of laps, reliability issues throughout every single session, and yeah, thankfully was able to bring the sole McLaren home today in P5. Max Verstappen, 14 positions gained into P6. Good result from him. As we said, it's all about how good are your bad races, and Max Verstappen recovering there to P6. Ollie Behrman could be contender for driver of the day today, up 5 places into P7, picking up where he left off last season. Great result from him. Arvid Lindblad, rookie, up to P4 at one point at the start of the race. Great launch, beats his teammate, and was getting punchy, fighting with Ollie Behrman and Gabriel Bortoleto at the end there in P8. Great start to his career, and looking forward to seeing more of the 18-year-old. Gabriel Bortoleto in P9, solid result from him, considering he had a reliability issue yesterday, which meant he couldn't participate in Q3, and Hulkenberg didn't even start the race with a reliability issue. Good result and good couple of points there for Bortoleto in P9. Gasly up 4 places into P10. Full Esteban Ocon, the former teammates, the former friends, fighting each other out, and they made contact as well. Good racing between them. Finishes in P10. Esteban Ocon in P11. Damn my fantasy team. I'll have a check at my fantasy team in a second. He finishes in P11. Don't know why the top 11 don't score points. Ridiculous. Alex Albon in P12. Williams have a lot of work to do for sure. Liam Lawson pretty much stalled on the grid. Very fortunate not to be hit in the rear at the start there. And he recovered somewhat. He was, I think, nearly dead last at one point at the start of the race. So he recovered somewhat, but yeah, poor start meant that his race was kind of over and done with. Colapinto had a penalty for race start infringement. Not entirely sure what happened. Sainz in P15, up 6 places, but still not good enough for Williams overall. Perez, the solitary Cadillac to finish, so that's a positive for them. In P16, my prediction didn't come to fruition, no. Stinker for Aston Martin. Yes, definitely, I think. One retirement and bringing both their cars back out. Oh, listening to Oscar Piastri now, actually. Hang on. Says they had a bit of an issue out of the pits with no battery. He had no battery coming out of the pit lane. Fair play to him. He's holding his hands up and saying there's a large element of just me. Yeah. Fair play to him. He's held his hands up and said, there's a large element that's me with the curb and stuff, but there's also, I had 100 kilowatts of extra power at that moment in time that I didn't expect. So, yeah. I can see. I mean, fair play to him. He could quite easily just say, yeah, I had a whole amount of power that I didn't expect, but he's held his hands up there. So going back to it, Alonso, P18, retired. Bottas, retired. So not good for Cadillac. Red Bull powertrain of Isaac Hadjar, real shame for him, was travelling down the back straight, down from turn 8 to turn 9, and the engine went pop and was on fire. So hopefully he'll be okay for Shanghai. Piastri, we just mentioned there, and Hulkenberg didn't even get to start the race. Was going to be starting 11th, one position behind his teammate, and he ended up, well, I think he did the outlap and he retired. So, yeah, real shame for Hulkenberg there. And that is the end of the Australian Grand Prix. What a race. I really enjoyed that. Charles gave Mercedes a run for their money in the beginning, but Russell was just playing with him until the pit stops. I don't think so. I don't think so, because he had Lewis Hamilton behind him. Look, George couldn't rest on his laurels because he really had to try and gain track position, because Lewis Hamilton had the pace behind him, was trying to put on the pressure as well. And I think that Mercedes just, evidently, the only way it could kind of overtake Charles Leclerc at the start of the race was probably to use a bit more battery. I mean, this is why it would be absolutely amazing, F1, if we had available information to... let's see if they do have it for us. I don't think they do. The boost mode. We don't have boost mode or anything yet. They've not made that available to us. No, we don't have any battery information available to us. So it'd be great to see if they was in overtake mode or something. But yeah, that's being withheld for the time being. It's only been shown selectively at selected moments on onboards. The state of the battery charge in the F1 TV coverage, but they definitely. He definitely used, I think, more battery at certain points to get past Leclerc, and then Leclerc, obviously, with the offset of having more battery back and the slipstream, and the what we saw yesterday as well, by the way, is the Ferrari. When you look at the track map of who was quickest where, the Ferrari has been very good in the corners. It's got a very well balanced car, and Charles and Lewis are definitely looking very good in the corners compared to Mercedes. Really, the whole advantage that Mercedes has at the moment is in the power output that they have. And in the corners, Ferrari fare much better. And I think we saw that at the start of the race for sure, because Charles was just able to stay close to Russell and get back past him. And then that's why, obviously, Russell, I don't think he rests on his laurels, because he did try to overtake Charles and he became susceptible to overtakes from Lewis Hamilton. And then they started to obviously kind of just line four abreast, didn't they, with Antonelli cashing up to them. But it would have been a much, much closer race if Ferrari had pitted under the VSC as well. So Ferrari has never made a strategy mistake. How dare you? Two starts going. Oh yeah, 2 race starts next week. Ooh, it's going to be great. Is battery use all automatic apart from boost overtake? I think so. Yeah. So, Barak, you've been missing these races because they start at 6 a.m. for Turkey. Oh man. Well, China's a bit later in the day. I think it's a 6 a.m. race start for me in the UK. So that will be a bit more of a reasonable time for us in Europe, for sure, wherever you are. And because everyone else in Europe is ahead of us in the UK. And then Suzuka is, I think, an early race again as well, but not as early as Australia. And then we get to the more usual time. So, but I took a 7th Digicar for what? Aussie TV show battery level and boost on TV. What, throughout or just on the onboards, David? I thought that it was only on certain onboard shots that they were showing it. But anyway, we don't have access to the data on it. So, but that is it. That is it. F1 TV is given 7 days free. Well, you can still use, Core, my commentary. You know how good my commentary is. Stream edit. I am ending the stream right now. Yes, it has been a very, very long morning. We still have 1,200 of you here, by the way. Listen to me absolutely waffle on. So a big thank you. Appreciate it. The content is not over and done with for today, though. Oh, no, because I'm going to go do my driver ratings straight after this. I'm going to put that video together, and you'll be able to watch that probably in a few hours' time. I'm still wide awake, so I'm going to do that, and then you can watch that later on today and let me know if you agree or disagree with me. But I think a positive experience today. The racing product was definitely better than the qualifying product. And look, if that is the trade-off that we have this year, I said that yesterday, if the trade-off is that we have a poor qualifying product, I will happily take it if the racing is good, because that's what I watch F1 for. Of course, we want the best of both worlds, but if you're going to have that trade-off, then we'll have that. So thank you very much, guys. I think the season is looking positive. Yes, Mercedes won, but that final gap between Ferrari and the Mercedes is a bit exaggerated for what it eventually was, with Mercedes pitting when they did. Brilliant strategy call by them to pit under the VSC. Ferrari should have at least pitted one of their cars, and really they had a missed opportunity today. Could they have won the race? I'm still not quite sure they could have done, but they could have maybe split the two Mercedes and made a much, much better and closer go at it. But we head into China next week. Only 5 more days until we are back again for another practice session. 1 solitary hour. We'll see how that fares for them before we head straight into sprint quali. Thank you for all the subscriptions today, guys. Absolutely smashing stream at a silly o'clock in the morning for most of us in Europe. Of course, appreciate everyone tuning in around the world. Hope you've enjoyed it. 2026 fully underway. And yes, we will see you for my driver ratings a little bit later on today in the video. My race preview, we have the driving regulations to review as well for the next week, because that's been released and I didn't get a chance to do that this weekend because of my body clock being all over the place. And then before we know it, yeah, we're back into these watch-alongs again. Big thank you, everyone. Lovely to see you once again. On to China. Bye.